Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to our channel. The date is Sunday the 31st of May 2025. It is our 239th Tafseer halaqah. The format will be Tafseer, followed by a Q&A, and then a brief Palestine update after that, which will be on Zoom on Zoom and Rumble later. So Zoom, if you want to join our Zoom, if you want to hear everything hot off the press. If not, you'll be able to listen on Rumble. Questions we prefer people to ask directly on mic. We have had some questions which have been submitted earlier, which we will ask first. But generally speaking, if you're able to jump on the mic and ask questions, you get the full benefit. That way we can get dialogue going. There's always things that are lost in translation and things that are misunderstood and some things that can span over the course of weeks if it's not answered directly. Okay, so we are on Surah Al-Ankabut, the spider, which is Surah 29. We are on Ayah 28, which I'll recite, and then a professor and read the translation, and then a professor will give the tafsir. Okay.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
We're starting the story of Lut alayhi salam from the chapter now. وَلُوتًا إِذْ قَالَ لِقَوْمِهِ إِنَّكُمْ لتأتون الفاحشة ما سبقكم بها من أحد من العالمين. And Lot, too, was inspired by us when he said unto his people, verily, you commit abominations such as none in all the world has ever committed before you. Next translation. Sorry, it's got just a second. I need to find the right one. And Lot, when he said to his people, how dare you commit such an immoral deed, as no one has preceded you with from among the worlds.
The meaning is very clear. He is addressing, obviously, because everyone knows the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, Sodom and Amoriya, and it is concerning homosexuality. Most likely what Lot means is that they do it in public, openly, and they regard that as permissible and can be committed in public in their clubs and so on. Not that it's done in secrecy, because I think things like that must have been in existence in time before, but in secret, not publicly, and not organized by the society and accepted as a socially acceptable behavior. So that's what he means. Nobody before you did it this way, this public, open way, official way. But before that, there may have been some cases like that. The same with adultery and zina must have been even before that available, and other things. But this way in Sodom and Gomorrah was really their invention. Okay, next ayah.
Next ayah.
Oh, everything is self-explanatory. Yeah, next ayah.
أئنكم لتأتون الرجال وتقطعون السبيل وتأتون في ناديكم المنكر فما كان جواب قومه إلا أن قالوا ائتنا بعذاب الله إن كنت من الصادقين. Must you indeed approach men with lust and thus cut across the way of nature? And must you commit these shameful deeds in your open assemblies? But his people's only answer was, bring down upon us God's chastisement, if thou art a man of truth. Next translation. Second. Sorry, just the next translation. They've changed the order. I'll go to us. Must you? No.
Stick to one like the clear Quran. So the same one.
Yeah, it's just that, you know, what's happened is because this Islam Awakening has changed the order of. I usually go with Kafkas. So the second one is you lust after men, obstruct nature's way, and commit every shameful act in your gathering. His people's answer was, bring us God's punishment if what you say is true. So
this is that's what they have invented. These three things at the same time. The last one, let's step to the first one, is clearly, obviously, homosexuality. Men performing sex with men, that's number one. As I said, Now, the two other things, there are disagreement between the scholars what they mean. The first one, it says that you cut the way. What's the meaning of the cut way? The obvious and simple-minded explanation is that they were performing highway robbery. Caravans were passing into their area. They allow themselves to cut away and rob them, or which is obviously we know that no society did that as a totality. So it's unlikely to be that. But there's a possibility that even those people who do not come in the town or in the outskirts of the town, they intercept them in the faraway ways and charge them maybe with taxes and passage fees, which in areas which do not belong to them. That you may charge fees in your areas may be tolerable. It may have some reason, like taxation or customs. Even that's condemned, must be condemned. But the one far away is obviously like piracy in the high seas. Interestingly, the United States of America is doing that now, piracy in the high seas as a state, as an entity, not pirates, so-called pirates, which maybe in time past have been freedoms fighter and declared to be pirates by Britain and other imperial powers. But we are not discussing history and so on, how these terms have been abused, like terrorism, by these powers to condemn sometimes freedom fighter and legitimate resistance. But independent of that, it seems to be because they were at the southern tip of the Dead Sea, that's the area, slightly to the Jordan side. And the place is known now. And where the volcanic eruption happened is known. All of that have been, I think, now archaeologically proven and checked. And the caravan roads were going obviously east from that, quite a considerable distance from their area, and maybe was very unlikely more in the Palestinian side, deep inside. So it's not in their area nor in their domain. And still they were intercepting the people and charging fees or taking a share of their possessions. That's a possibility. Some other, you say they تقطعون السبيل, you cut the natural way, like the first translation, meaning by encouraging cohabiting with men, this would discourage man-woman relation, which is the way of natural way of procreation, because cohabiting with men will not produce new hormones, and those who indulge in that, if it becomes rampant in society, obviously the number of offsprings will sink, and the way of nature of procreation and continuation of humanity will be cut. I think this is also maybe part of the meaning, but I don't think that's the main meaning of the ayah. I think the first meaning is the reality, and also one of the first meaning is that they will allow themselves to be highway, not robber, but highway taxation, but also highway possibly abusing passing people by raping them homosexually also. So not only they do that voluntarily inside their city or their cities, they do it to the others by force. If someone does not agree, they do it by force to him. They rape him. So there's taqawun as-sabil. So not only for money, but also for sexual pleasure, by force if necessary. So that's one of the possible meaning. And then تأتون في ناديكم المنكر, you do the objectionable and the objectionable in your assembly or in your clubs, in your open meetings and gatherings and so on. And the best interpretation of that, they were doing also homosexuality publicly. They were having like we have nowadays in some countries, sex is performed publicly in not completely on the streets, but in certain clubs and so on. Nadi, in Nadikum Lunka, not on the streets and so on. And also in America, something like that I think it's for homosexuality also, but as far as I remember, also for usual sex. In Germany, it's well established. I know about that. I have seen TV programs discussing that openly in a shameless way. So that's the best interpretation. But there's another interpretation from a narration. I couldn't verify it very much in the past because secondary is that they have invented the habit of farting publicly in clubs, and using that as a signal, and someone farts, the other one answer him with a fart. This is often despicable, obviously, but I don't think it's that what the ayah is addressing. Maybe one of the things they're doing in public. So they are quite decadent and loose in public and in their assemblies and their gathering and so on. So that's also a possibility. There's three things. Lusting after men, that's clear what's it. Cutting the highway or cutting a sabil, the way, with various interpretation, and also doing despicable things in their gathering, which has various legitimate interpretation. One of them, they are openly demonstrate homosexuality, if not the intercourse itself, by having a homosexual or a male partner next to him and kissing him publicly and so on. That's also objectionable. If that's not permissible for normal out of wedlock sex, then it should not be permissible, even worse, for a sex which is fundamentally prohibited. So that's in assembly. They demonstrate that. And what the response of his people was, if you are telling the truth, that's condemnable, then get the your alleged divine punishment, bring that divine punishment upon us. Instead of saying, okay, bring your evidence that you are a prophet and that you are sent from God. Instead, they challenge him, or challenge the one who sent him by saying, oh, bring the punishment, we'll see. Meaning, we are sure that you are a liar and there's no punishment to come, because no one in his right mind would invite punishment which he knows that is going to come. It's just a mockery. Bring the divine punishment if you are telling the truth. Meaning, you must be a liar and fabricator. That can't be true. We do whatever we want and we are free to do it. We enjoy our freedom. That's what we hear now in many societies which have regarded homosexuality as a virtue, almost as a virtue, or something like a acceptable human behavior and so on. So that's the 3 points they mentioned. First one is clear. The two have various interpretation from the classical scholars. So next one. But the best interpretation is that because lusting after men is that what's very characteristic for these people, even cutting the highway or intercepting the passaging, the people passing even far away out of their domain, is most likely to rape them or force them into sexual abominations. And that's one. And also in the gathering, also performing homosexuality openly, or thing connected to homosexuality, like having a boyfriend next to a man and things like that, and exchanging kisses publicly and so on. And this is being by now, unfortunately, very widespread in the West. In England, I have seen people in the bus, two men kissing each other in the same way like a man and woman kisses, which itself should not be done in public. Definitely not in public, but it has become almost a custom since several hundred years for men and women, and now for this homosexuality has become public, essentially in the last quarter of the last century. I remember seeing that in the streets and the buses of London in the 90s already. So that's we are going the same way of Sodom and Gomorrah seems to be here. America, they are, I think, a little bit ahead of that even. Okay, next ayah.
قال رب انصرني على القوم المفسدين. And he prayed, O my sustainer, succor thou me against these people who spread corruption. Next ayah, he said, in next translation, he said, my Lord, support me against these wicked people.
إذا the word used spreading was مفسدين, fasad. Fasad usually related to murder, bloodshed, destruction of infrastructure, agriculture, offsprings, and also forced intercourse, both for male and female. That's what usually the ayah of harb, the ayah of muharaba is addressing, which is having the penalty of execution, crucifixion, or cutting hands and legs across, etc. Very severe punishment. Usually fasad means that. It's not just any corruption. And the usual use of fasad now, very common, corruption of government taking bribes and so on, is something else actually. This is ghulul. This is taken from the public treasury, taking public money without justification. That's another crime. It's a severe crime, obviously. And most likely should be classified as a type of theft, requiring cutting hands and things like that, but not the waging war, using violence and force to rape, to pillage, to destroy structures, to annihilate agriculture, and to kill people and injure them. Okay. So that's, so we ask him, obviously, the previous ayah mentioned only one sentence. This one sentence is years of struggle between Lot, summarizing all that, what happened over a long time. That's not one day, not 1 month, maybe years along the way. Yeah. So he supplicated. He has no power. Nobody supported. Even his own wife seems to be, because he married in these people, his own wife seems to be believing in the same beliefs and the value system of her own people, as we know later from other places in the Quran. Possibly her mention will come here.
Okay.
Next.
ولما جاءت رسلنا إبراهيم بالبشرى قالوا إنا مهلكو أهل هذه القرية إن أهلها كانوا ظالمين. And so when our heavenly messengers came to Abraham with the glad tidings of the birth of Ishaq, they also said, behold, we are about to destroy the people of that land, for its people are truly evildoers. Next translation. And when our messengers came to Abraham and with the good news of Isaac's birth, in brackets, they also said, we will destroy the people of that town. Its people have been wicked.
So the ayah does not mention Isaac's birth itself, but say, well, Bushra, the good news, leaving you to think, what's the good news? We know from other places, the good news of Ibrahim is that, but also the news of destruction. This should be a good news. Of Ibrahim, with his own nature, very soft, very gentle, started arguing with them about these people and trying to. First of all, he said, Lot is there. Stubborn. So we know who is there. Don't worry. We know exactly how we separate from these two camps and so on. We know that very well. So don't worry about that. So the Bushra here is both actually, but Ibrahim perceived the issue, and the story of the Bushra of Ishaq is in Isaac is in various other places in the Quran, sometimes with much more details, sometimes with less details, but they passed on Ibrahim first. And then he offered them a luxurious meal, etc. Because Ibrahim was a rich man. He has actually an entourage and slaves and people around him and so on. He was almost like a small tribe, quite like an independent state entity, which previously was engaged in war against the people who abducted Lot from Sodom and Gomorrah, according to the Old Testament. He was abducted, 4 kings, possibly maybe taking revenge for intercepting the caravans and so on, invaded that place and took the 2 kings of Sodom and Gomorrah and Lot and all the population prisoners of war. And Ibrahim went to liberate Lot specifically and defeated the 4 kings. They're a long story. Anyway, it's an interesting story. It's worth reading in Old Testament. Seems to be, looks good. Does not look very much of fabrication or oddity there, which is not acceptable. So obviously this is before the destruction, so it must be after the liberation of Lot long ago. And these stories. So he was living like a royal, really, Ibrahim. His table must be extensive with whole calves and so on being grilled and so on, offered to guests like that. And they didn't eat, etc. We know the story of other place. And he was afraid, and they told him, "Don't be afraid. We are the messenger of you." So they came in human shape, obviously, and he thought them they are passers by, and they looked very respectable and so on. And he invited them because he was an extremely generous man. So they gave him the good news, and they said, "We are going to these villages or this village, this locality, because they are unjust." The word Jews in the Quran, they are transgressing. They transgress from the limits of moderation and justice. Now, Ibrahim, start interceding. So next ayahs will clarify that.
قال إن فيها لوطا قالوا نحن أعلم بمن فيها لننجينه وأهله إلا امرأته كانت من الغابرين. First translation. And when Abraham exclaimed, "But Lot lives there," they answered, "We know fully well who is there. Most certainly we shall save him and his household, all but his wife. She will indeed be among those that stay behind." Next translation. And Abraham said, "But Lot is there." They said, "We know who is there better than you do. We will save him and his family, except for his wife. She is to be among those who remain behind."
Behind. Okay, so that's very clear. But obviously summarizing, but there was a long intercession before that and discussion, etc., etc. But ultimately, and even he was instructed by them or by Allah directly through another angel, Ibrahim, just turn away from this discussion. The decision is made. There's no way to escape. And then he said, "What about Lut?" And they told him, "Don't worry, we'll save him and his household, except his wife, which I said she's a traitor. And she's one of the prime examples of treasonous woman and traitors in the Quran. She would be left behind. She would be one of who would be perished because the two villages will be destroyed utterly and completely." Now, the wife of Lut is mentioned in the Quran in various, not only the story of Lut, but as an example, when Allah said, ضرب الله مثل الذين, Allah is giving an example for those who for the disbeliever, first for the disbeliever. The wife of Nuh is mentioned only that one place in the Quran. Nowhere in the story of Nuh his wife is mentioned, but only that there. So she seemed to be also on the value system of her own people with idols and idols worship, although she is a wife of a prophet and a heavyweight messenger like Noah. And the wife of Lut. They were the wives and under two of pious and righteous servants of ours. So both committed treachery. The treachery meaning is they were not on the same way of life, not treachery in the sense of sexual immorality or something. This is very unlikely. Most scholars say no. Khiyana here means really they were communicating with their own people, encouraging them against the prophet. The same with the wife Lut. She is most likely the one who told her people, "Come here. They're very nice angels. Come. They're very nice men, beautiful men. Come and enjoy them." So she is quite evil. The same with Noah's wife. We don't know the story, but similarly. And that's the Quran says in that place, this is an example for disbelievers, using two female examples concerning issues about female and male and so on. Allah gave example for believers, as supreme examples, two women for disbelievers. That's the wife of Noah and the wife of Lot, who should have been in the highest possible rank of good people, because they are married to two of the most pious and respected messengers, but they betrayed the message. And they were, Allah the day of Qiyamah, enter the hellfire. These two prophets will not help you Yawm al-Qiyamah. They cannot intercede for you. Enter the hellfire with those who are going to enter it. And there was the example of the believers, two examples, opposite direction. One is the opposite direction, one is completely independent type of people. One in the opposite example, we'll get to the surah much later, inshallah, if Allah give us life. May take a year until we get there. Is the wife of Pharaoh. That's the wife of Pharaoh, which, according to the Old Testament, most likely the one with the Pharaoh who drowned, not the one who brought him up. Many Mufassirin think it's the same one. No, there's a gap of time, very number of pharaohs in between, two or three in between. That one departed, according to the Old Testament, in Exodus with Musa. That's the wife Pharaoh, which is mentioned here. The one who followed Musa and supplicated to Allah that Allah would establish for her a dwelling in paradise and save him from Pharaoh and his misdeeds. That's the one. And the other one is another unique example, does not fit in any of these categories, is Maryam, the daughter of Imran, Maryam, the mother of Isa, the Messiah, alayhim salatu wassalam. And she is the one who was supreme in chastity and devotion, because she was devoted also to the temple, as you know from other places in the Quran. And she was believing in God and his messengers and his words. And she was from the people who completely devoted. That's the second example for the believers. So these two examples. So wife of Lot is very prominent, and she is mentioned here in the story in detail. Wife of Lot is not mentioned except in that place as an evil example. And Maryam bin Agra is mentioned in a complete story, a complete surah. We know that. Okay, so we will save him, all his household, except his wife. She will be behind. The one will perish and will be destroyed. Left behind, meaning destruction in this case. Next ayah.
ولما جاءت رسلنا لوطا سيء بهم وضاق بهم ذرعا وقالوا لا تخف ولا تحزن إنا منجوك وأهلك إلا امرأتك كانت من الغابرين. And when our messengers came unto Lot, he was surely grieved on their account, seeing that it was beyond his power to shield them. But they said, Fear not and grieve not. Behold, we shall save thee and thy household, all but thy wife. She will indeed be among those that stay behind. Next translation. And when our messengers came to Lot, they were mistreated, and he was troubled and distressed on their account, because he felt powerless to protect them. They said, Fear not, nor grieve. We will save you and your family, except your wife. She's among those who will remain behind.
Behind. Ghabara is actually remain behind. Not literally, it's coming from ghabar, dust. It will be from the dusted one. That's the one who will be forsaken, the one who will be destroyed and become dust, will be blown away, essentially. In that context, it's leaving behind. That is more like the one of the who will perish and end in destruction, essentially. That's more stronger than just leaving behind. But in that context, leaving it behind means you will be destroyed. Now, this is a very summarized version. In other places, more detail. But there are narrations. I don't know if they are well established from Prophet ﷺ. I did not verify them, but they look interesting. Like, for example, they came when he was working outside in his farm or in his livestock, and he saw them coming, and he felt, no, this is a bad. They were good looking, obviously, body well formed, prime example for homosexual to be inclined to, and said, this is a very difficult day. And the story goes that he told them, what you are doing here? Have you not heard about this village? No, we are coming for business. We are having goods and so on. That's the story of she narrated, not in the Quran. And they say, no, this is a bad place. There's no good business here. I advise you to go away. They do this and this. No. We will know how to manage ourselves and so on. Unless you want to reject us as a guest. Say, no, I'm not rejecting you. Because especially in those times, you cannot reject a guest unless you are an evil man. So we ask you to take us as guests for at least one day and one night. That's the duty of everyone. In time past, and also, by the way, in Islam. So, and also in Christianity. Now, this is well established how that, and people crossing over the land, which rights they have against the people in the village. They have the right of food for one day and stay for one. And he could not otherwise, so he took them. He waited until the story goes, until it became dark, so hopefully he can sneak to his house. A nice story. I don't know who invented it or it is true. And then a sneak there was in his house, and the story goes, and his wife tipped her people. That Lot, and the Quran says another occasion, they rebuked Lot and said, these are my guests. I give them protection. Don't disgrace me. Especially most likely because he must have a special standing, because if that story in the Old Testament is true, and it rings true, that they were liberated because Ibrahim wanted to save Lot and saved all of them, then they must have the same respect for him. So yes, we know that you have a special standing, but we told you already, you are not allowed to harbor anybody or protect anybody. That's the agreement between us. So we violated the agreement. That's another place of the Quran. Then you say, whatever you do, we don't touch you in house, but don't give anyone a refuge or harbor in your house. Anyway, so he was quite upset about this encounter, and then they came and sieged the house. That the Quran is explaining another place, and there was back and forth. They did not storm the house because of that agreement in time past and the respect to Lot. Ibrahim, actually, because of Lot's being his nephew, the one saved them from the slavery, from the hand of the four kings, including the king of Damascus and 2 or 3 other kings there. So they did not storm yet, but they were drinking and making unbelievable approaches, but waiting in the hope that when the morning comes, he must give up and open the door. And then he, in another place in the Quran, says he turned to them, to these softy, nice looking boys, telling them, you don't look like you are able to do any fight. If you have been fighter, I would fight with you against these people. Or if there's any place I can take a refuge to. And there's authentic hadith of Allah say, رحم الله لوطا لقد كان في ركن شديد. May Allah have mercy on Lot. He was such a situation that he forgot that he really have a strong backup, a tough, unbreakable backup. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is his backup. But at the moment, being under such a siege, with 3 guys there who look so soft that move like almost girls, what can you do? You become desperate. They say, don't despair. We are the messenger of your Lord. We've taken my shape for especially this, to administer the final blow to these people. Now go with your family out and beware, don't turn our back. Anyone turning back will freeze in his place and will be destroyed. And they gave him the information. Your wife, unfortunately, she's a traitor. She will turn back and she will be, don't worry about her, continue walking. That's what happened then. But here, they told him the summary, we are saving you except your wife, because she will be under those who will perish and will be dusted, turning into dust, the one who will stay behind for the destruction. So that's what this phrase is, just all that is summarized in just these 3 sentences. Don't worry, don't be grieving. We are the messengers of your Lord, and we'll save you and your family. We'll tell you how to do that. But don't worry, your wife, be informed that your wife is a traitor, and she will turn and she will be destroyed. Don't worry about her. Just proceed and continue. And that's exactly what happened then. Next ayah.
إنا منزلون على إنا منزلون على أهل هذه القرية رجزا من السماء بما كانوا يفسقون. Verily, we shall bring down upon the people of this land a horror from heaven in requital of all their iniquitous doings. Next translation. We will bring down we will bring down punishment from the sky on the people of this town because they have deviated from God's orders.
Okay, so self-explanatory. And the other ayahs of the Quran, they certify next morning. The appointment is the next morning, because that's the time where the eruption of this volcano, nearby volcano, was scheduled, which will cover the area with volcanic ashes, dark volcanic ashes, which looks like tar and zift, asphalt and things like that. The Old Testament talked about zift raining from heaven. It must be some kind of volcanic or similar eruption. Okay. Next
ayah.
Yeah.
وَلَقَدْ تَرَكْنَا مِنْهَا آيَةً بَيِّنَةً لِقَوْمٍ يَعْقِلُونَ. And so it happened, and thereof indeed we have left a clear sign for people who use their reason. Next translation. Just a second. Sorry, just one second, yeah. We have a remnant of that town as clear evidence for people who use their reason.
Yeah. Next ayah, that's clear, self-explanatory. And it remains, and it was now by digging and so on, by archaeological research, and the layers of black soot and so on, and the volcanic ashes has been found. Next.
وإلى مدين أخاهم شعيبا فقال يا قوم اعبدوا الله وارجوا اليوم الآخر آخرة ولا تعثوا في الأرض مفسدين. And unto the people of Madian we sent their brother Shu'aib, who thereupon said, O my people, worship God alone and look forward to the last day, and do not act wickedly on earth by spreading corruption. Next translation. And to Madian we sent their brother Shu'aib, who told them, My people, worship God and look forward to the last day, and do not spread wickedness on the earth.
Okay, so that's the same, like concerning facade, through corruption, and earth, it must entail violence and so on. And in that case, we know that they were also taxing people passing by. They didn't have rape and things like that. Possibly they will do, but we don't know. That's not mentioned. They are not out there. They are out for money and deserving other wealth without any justification, if necessary by force, because they have obviously strong army and considerable power and capabilities. So they were abusing it by obviously intercepting caravans which are passing far away in the open space and forcing them to pay taxes and so, or give part of their earning and so on. Okay. So what did his people respond? And also they were also having idols and so on. Notice in the case of Lut, as we discussed also in the book of Tawheed, there is nowhere mentioned in the Quran that they have idols or other things. They seem to be originally they were monotheists, but their violation is in legislating for themselves new values which are counter to the well-established revelation. But idols and things like that, they don't seem to be having that. Even also in the Old Testament, there doesn't seem to have any mention of that. Okay, next.
فكذبوه فأخذتهم الرجفة فأصبحوا في دارهم جاثمين. But they gave him the lie, and thereupon an earthquake overtook them, and then they lay lifeless in their very homes on the ground. Next translation. But they rejected him, so an earthquake seized them, and the next morning they lay dead in their homes.
So in this place it says Rajfa, another place Yom Vulla, the punishment of Yom Vulla, and most things have Vulla, that some kind of a cloud of fire and so on. So it possibly because all that area from south tip of the Dead Sea, you go a little bit inside to the east, and all this area is area of major faults in the earth and volcanic and lava flow eruptions. Going down south, before or near Tabuk, you encounter the area where the mountain called Sa'ir. Sa'ir means the fire or the hot mountain, which was in time past an active volcano, small one, but mostly it is a flow on the surface of the earth, like Medina. Then you continue down, then you come to Madian. Madian is essentially in a little bit south, midway to Medina, or slightly to the north, closer to Jordan. There are also lava fields and so on there. So possibly there was a crack in one similar to the eruption, which was said by Prophet ﷺ in Medina, which we have in the book of Tawheed, the volcano of Habsain, one of the evidences of prophethood. A similar one, but the Medina obviously was protected from it. But here it was close enough. In Medina, the earth shook, but not devastatingly. Here it was obviously close enough that both they were covered with ashes and fire from top, and the ground was shaking from the bottom. So if you take both places in the Quran, it seems to be something like a lava extraction in a volcanic or in a flat lava flow, similar to the area around Medina. Mostly lava fields with smaller volcanoes. Smaller mean 100 meter, 200 meter high. Not the usual we see like Etna and so on. These are huge stratovolcanoes. No, that one is ash volcanoes, very low ones, and the lava flows, and you see big lava fields called lava, which is I think the Arabic version of lava. so that they took the word from the because at the time before Islam, even a half century or even maybe 500,000 years before Islam, there were no eruption there. So the people did not coin a word for these lava fields, and they imported from Latin lava fields. Anyway, whatever it is, so it seems to be of this type. That's what happened. If you take the Yawm al-Dhulla, the day of the covering cloud, from which allegedly fire came down, that should be then obviously it would be together with the shaking of the ground, indicate that must have been some kind of a nearby volcanic eruption, so that both the earthquake and the dark clouds, which is very hot and possibly sparking with fire, both of them from up and down, completely exterminate them.
That's a pyroclastic cloud, yeah?
Something like that, yeah, possibly. Or just ashes, which are because the crack in the earth from which lava flows was nearby. In Medina, it was nearby, but was shielded by other mountains. Medina was safe because of the barakah and the prayer of the Prophet ﷺ. And the lava field came all the way to Uhud in Medina. And that's explained in the book of Tawheed, one of the evidences of the prophethood, about the Habsail, the volcano, the fire coming out of Habsail, the huge fire. And we have also traces in the two poles of this fire, etc., of the ashes and that's not a pyroclastic. That's something else like a volcanic ashes, another category. The one in Habsail seems to have the same effect like pyroclastic one, but this is, we'll discuss in the next edition of the Book of Tawheed. We'll add these points to the recent research and recent research about that also as a final comment. The existing information is more than enough to show what it has happened, but plus it is really a real evidence, because it materialized after the Prophet, 600 years after the Prophet. So the prophecy was there, spread in all the books, from Bukhari all the way to all books of Hadith, Tabarani, spread everywhere, east and west. It's impossible to fabricate after the fact and write it back. That's impossible. So it's a real, genuine prophecy. Anyway, so that's Madian. They were exterminated by this, let's say, volcanic, also some kind of a volcanic eruption. Okay, the same similar to the river of Lut. So this area, all that because of the split of the Red Sea 20 million years ago, is still unstable and having earthquakes and volcanic eruption. Okay.
Next ayah. وعادا وثمودا وقد تبين لكم من مساكنهم وزينا لهم الشيطان أعمالهم فسدهم عن السبيل وكانوا مستبصرين. And the tribes of Ad and Thamud, too did we destroy, as should have become obvious to you from brackets whatever there remains of their dwellings. They perished because Satan had made their sinful doings seem goodly to them, and thus had barred them from the path of God, despite their having been endowed with the ability to perceive the truth. Next translation. And Ad and Thamud, what happened to them is evident to you from their ruined dwellings. Satan made their deeds pleasing to them and averted them from the path of God, even though they had been able to see the truth.
So Ad, we don't have anything of them remaining, because it seems to be maybe at the time of Prophet or before, the Arabs or the generation before still have some stories about some of the remainder of their destroyed areas, north of Hadramaut, south of the so-called empty quarter. But since then, the desertification progressed very fast. So most likely, up to known well-established history, it was covered by sand, and desertification continued until now. It seems to be it has now bottomed and it's reversed slowly, but there's none of their traces visible now. So they're called Ahqaf. Ahqaf is the area north of Hadramaut. If you look at the Arab Peninsula between Yemen and Oman, there's along the seaside is the area of Hadramaut and Mohra. North of it, towards inside Arabia, towards the north or northwest, slightly northwest actually, That's all the areas called Ahqaf. That seems to be where Ad were there, or at least their cities, the main cities and so on. And these have been now, the remainder, if there's any remainder, has been buried now deep under the sand. It's not very likely that any digging will bring anything. I don't think even deep penetrating the radar will be able to get something out, because the amount of sand moving from north to south and so over the Ad must be like 2,500 years before Christ. So we're talking about now 3,500 years, and massive movement of and there's a phase going more south, and the wind is blowing toward the sea. So the layers are way too deep to be even scanned by deep penetrating radar. But let's wait and see. Maybe someone will be able to find something one day there. Thamud is because they have these in the Rocky Mountains of North Hijaz, or middle North Hijaz, about 500 kilometers north of Medina. It's called Medina al-Mada'in Saleh, the city of Saleh. They were digging housing in the mountains that's still available until now, which has not been populated for them except in a few occasions in a passing byway. Okay. And they were capable of seeing and knowing, and they have prophets and so on, but they were too arrogant to accept the message of the prophets, and the devil made their misdeeds beautiful in their eyes, because they have been militaristic societies invading their neighbors, and when they attack anybody, they attack with ferocity and impunity. They were very vicious. Ad and Thamud also. And Thamud is also mentioned together with Pharaoh, that they are previous empires. So they were main forces controlling the areas around them and subduing people using violence and strength. But these two are gone completely. No trace left, except for Thamud, the building. Egypt, the glory of the pharaohs is we see only the pyramids and few things. All the plenty is under the sand also, but still the people are digging and digging. But history kept it because it's close to Palestine, close to the Mediterranean. So ancient Greek and so on did keep records of that, and ancient people in Iraq, in Mesopotamia, in Iraq, and the Levant recorded some of that. But these were deep in Arabia, relatively isolated from the rest of the world. So there is not very much of record anywhere about them, except in the Quran, and for Thamud, the remaining building. Next.
وقارون وفرعون وحامان ولقد جاءهم موسى بالبينات فاستكبروا في الأرض وما كانوا سابقين.
And then after that, so before Lut and Madian, and then he jumps back in history to Ad and Thamud, and then jumps forward to the time after Shu'aib, the first serious messengerhood after that, or maybe the first at all, at least in this area, is Musa, Harun, and being sent to Qarun and Haman and Pharaoh. Okay.
And thus too did we deal with Qarun, Pharaoh, and Haman. To them had come Moses with all evidence of the truth, but they behaved arrogantly on earth and rejected him, and withal they could not escape us. Next translation, the same fate befell Korah, Pharaoh, and Haman. Moses came to all of them with clear evidence, but they chose to be arrogant on earth, and they couldn't escape our punishment.
We discussed Korah is from according to the other ayah in Surah Al-Qasas, we passed that. Is from the people in Israelite, but he joined, obviously, joined the elite of Egypt, became from the elite, obviously became immensely rich. So he may be then was not regarded as a slave, and participated with the elite of the locals, the Egyptian, Pharaoh and co, and his ministers, including Haman, the chief minister, and the chief of the construction, and etc., and public works, and against his own people, and they were arrogant. And Surah Al-Qasas mentioned clearly that's from people of Musa. Qarun was the earth swallowed him. Allegedly, the lake called Buhayrat Qarun in Egypt, is that a place of swallowing? Allah Alam, we don't know. Nobody did any archaeological work in the bottom. Maybe there's nothing remaining to be seen. Nobody knows. Maybe so deep and it's gone covered with tens of meters of mud and so on. Well, this time is long enough to cover it, maybe 50 meters of mud. So I don't think anyone can get there to any great extent. So no trace will be found, most likely, but it may be worth digging there. And Pharaoh and Haman, the artifacts and the records are well established and available. And Musa came to them with the evidences, but they were arrogant and they were also suffered the punishment. Concerning Haman, we don't know what had happened to him personally. Maybe he survived, but Musa, maybe he was in the army, which mostly drowned with Pharaoh. We don't know, but Pharaoh, we know that he was drowning, but his body was saved. But we don't know very much more about that yet until now. Clearly, the records of the entourage of Pharaoh and the record of the palaces and the priests will not mention such a catastrophe. They will falsify history as usual. We know that. That's well established. Many of the modern historians, so-called hypercritical theory, claim, we don't find any mention of those in Egyptian records and in inscription on temples and so on. Come on, have you lost your mind? You think the priests will record such a calamity against them and against their society? No, they will put only the nice stories, and they will just cancel everything in history which does not fit their desires. And we have a prime example for that: the stealer of Ramses. Ramses came in the next family, or the second family after next, because Musa is most likely in 1450, roughly. That's the pharaoh there of Musa. In 12 something BC, all that BC, Ramses took over from Akhenaton, the one who was a monotheist and used the sun as a symbol for monotheism and things like that. We have record of Akhenaton from other sources and so on, but the stealer established by Ramses, and which he is in the top, obviously, if that's mentioning all the pharaohs from the unification of Egypt all the way, Akhenaton is missing. He removed him from history. So this removing people from history, or even pharaohs from history, it can be done by a pharaoh after them. So this is the Ramses theory. Does not mention Akhenaton at all. Does not exist there, as if he is not part of history. Were it not for other records of priests and so on, which mentioned Akhenaton, we would not have known that he existed. So this is easy to erase that from history, because who is keeping records? The elite and the priests. And these are master propagandists and fabricators. Anyway, that's a side remark. Next ayah.
وَكُلًّا أَخَذْنَا بِذَنبِهِ فَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ أَرْسَلْنَا عَلَيْهِ حَاسِبًا وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ أَخَذَتْهُ الصَّيْحَةُ وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ خسفنا به الأرض ومنهم من أغرقنا وما كان الله ليظلمهم ولكن كانوا أنفسهم يظلمون.
لكن كانوا أنفسهم يظلمون. Yeah.
For every one of them did we take to task for his sin, and so upon some of them we let loose a deadly storm wind, and some of them were overtaken by a sudden blast, and some of them we caused to be swallowed by the earth, and some of them we caused to drown. And it was not God who wronged them, but it was they who had wronged themselves.
Yeah, so you see.
Next translation. So we seized each of them for their transgression. Upon some we sent a storm of stones, and some were seized by a blast from the sky, and some we caused the earth to swallow, and some we drowned. It was not God who did them an injustice; they did themselves an injustice.
So we have we have five names and 4 punishments. The 5 names is Ad first. That's the one with the storm, which carries stones even. So it's heavy, very deadly storm. which is capable of carrying stones and killing people, even by if they are not taken in the air and smash against the earth, they will be killed by the stones. That's number one. Then Thamud were taken by the screaming, by blast or the sayha. And then Qarun, which comes third in this order, was the earth swallowed him. And then Haman is not mentioned. Haman and Fir'aun may be drowned. ومنهم من أغرقنا. Seems to be Haman drowned with Fir'aun, possibly. It's likely that he was in the army of Fir'aun and he drowned with the army. So that's a possibility. So in the same order is the same punishment I mentioned in the same order. If you look at the order there, Ad, Thamud, Qarun, Haman, and Fir'aun. Ad, the strong wind, the cyclone, they call the winds in the Indian Ocean cyclones. That's near the Indian Ocean. So it's a cyclone, the cyclone. Second one, Thamud, by the scream. Well, we don't know what the screaming, sayha, blast, huge blast. We don't know what's it. Maybe again a volcanic blast. We don't know. But there's nothing in the area was showing any traces of volcano. It was maybe only the screaming. We don't know. And the sound was enough. Some people say Gabriel came down and screamed at them. I don't know. We have no other example of screaming except Thamud. And the third one, possibly because volcanic eruption would have buried them in the salt and so on, and Allah wanted to keep them. So maybe another way of destruction. And then Qarun was swallowed by the earth. That's clear. Mentioned in the Quran. And the two others, Haman and Fir'aun. We know Fir'aun is explicitly mentioned, and his army. Haman is most likely was with him in this campaign. So that's the order. As it is the order mentioned in the ayahs before, the order here is also mentioned of the punishments. Next ayah. And obviously Allah did not do any injustice to them. They were unjust to themselves. They caused their own demise by themselves, by their misdeeds.
Next ayah. مثل الذين اتخذوا من دون الله أولياء كمثل العنكبوت اتخذت بيتا وإن أوحن البيوت لبيت العنكبوت لو كانوا يعلمون. The parable of those who take beings or forces other than God for their protectors is that of the spider, which makes for itself a house. For behold, the frailest of all houses is the spider's house. Could they but understand this?
Mm-hmm.
Next translation.
Yeah.
Next translation. The example of those who take protectors other than God is like that of the female spider that made itself a home for the weakest of homes is the spider's web, if they only knew.
So that's those who search support and from other entities inside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are the spider which took a house according to the people common knowledge. They think that what the spider weaves is its house. Actually, it's a very weak house. It's the weakest. If it's regarded as the house, it's the weakest in the awhan al-buyut. If the weakest of the houses is the house of Ankabut. But we know now, reality, it is not really where she lives. It is used as a net to catch insects because she feeds on insects. And the ayah says, "لو كانوا يعلمون," if they only knew, if they knew the reality of the Ankabut, and that they would be amazed. So this is directing the attention to the Ankabut, and this is what the people call house, because linguistically it's called Bait al-Ankabut, but the reality is not bait. It's their catching tool. It is their net for catching the insects. She doesn't live inside that. She lives elsewhere, but she brings that to catch. So if they knew and they study it, they will find amazement. On the other hand, as a house, it is not fit, but as a catching net, it's extremely powerful because these extremely thin threads of the Ankabut, barely anything in nature naturally is so thin. It was used in time past, before we have high technology and nanotechnology, or very small technical developments in this century. They were using spider web threads to manufacture the crosshair in certain telescopes, because it's so thin, it doesn't obscure anything, and where they cross, you can mark it with extreme accuracy. I don't think they're using it anymore now. It's possible now to manufacture things as thin as that, but at the time it was not. And despite this thinness, is per cross section stronger than steel even. So it can still, despite all that, be so thin so that insects cannot see it and they fall in it without noticing. That's the purpose of being extremely thin. It is then, it will catch the insects. So it stretches and hold them back. And the ankabut, the spider, can get its feed from the flying insects of various types. Okay, this is just attracting the people's attention to something. They should have done research in that. I doubt that anyone did some very much of a research in that until very recently. Okay, next ayah.
إن الله يعلم ما يدعون من دونه من شيء هو العزيز الحكيم. Verily, God knows whatever it is that men invoke instead of him, for he alone is almighty, truly wise. Next translation.
Yeah, next translation.
And God knows whatever they call upon other than him, for he is the revered, the wise.
This is not the exact, both of them did not get it, because Allah knows that what they call upon or invoke, attribute divinity to. We discussed in the book of Tawheed, what the yad'u means, da'wah. What does it mean? This had 4 or 5 major meetings. Maybe someone should check. The last halaqah, we discussed da'wah. What's the meaning of it? Those here, they attribute divinity to. They don't attribute to anything, meaning they attribute it to non-existing entities. It's an imagination. It's an imaginary subject or entity in their mind. They don't exist in reality. That's the more precise definition. So they invoke something because they have a mental image of something, but it doesn't exist. Allah knows that it doesn't exist. It's nothing. Ma min shay, nothing. Not that they call something which they know it doesn't exist. No. Because they believe it exists, and that's the reason that they devoted. But Allah knows that these things really do not exist. Although the mushrikeen think they exist, and they are out. They're awliya, they are supporters, they can grant victory, they can't succumb. They can nothing, because they are an impossibility. They don't exist. They're non-existing entities. As entity of the language and of the mind, but not a reality. And the real irresistible, wise and perfectionist is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The only one. That's the only one who could be an ally and could be giving victory. All these other things are just figments of imagination. They don't exist outside the mind, or outside the linguistic description. Next.
وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس وما يعقلها إلا العالمون. And so we propound these parables unto man, but none can grasp their innermost meaning save those who of us are aware. Next translation. Such examples we offer to people, but only those with knowledge will grasp their meaning.
Yeah, like for example of the Ankabut. You have to go deeper than just the shadow. The shallow understanding that it's the house of the Ankabut and it's weak and so on. It is not a house, it's something else. And it is weak as if taken as a house, but it is taken for another function and is extremely strong and capable in that regard. That's number one. Number two is that what they supplicate and regard as guardian beside Allah. They actually, when they allocate names to them, as if they are entities, they are non-entities. They don't exist. They are imaginative objects or just linguistic references, which refer to nothing. For that, you have to go much deeper in understanding how the mind works, how the world is really structured. But you have to be alim. You have to be starting real knowledge, not just shallow, taking things at face without any depth. Next ayah.
خلق الله السماوات والأرض بالحق إن في ذلك لآية للمؤمنين. And hence are certain that God has created the heavens and the earth in accordance with an inner truth. For behold, in this very creation, there is a message indeed for all who believe in him. Next translation. God created the heavens and the earth in truth, and there is in that a sign for the believers.
I think it's clear, but if you were to go philosophically deeper, created bil-haqq. And what is the haqq? The haqq is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. So the shows of Allah ta'ala in the universe are true and perfect and consistent, even if you don't grasp it or you don't understand it and you don't fits your taste and your limited vision of the reality. From an absolute point of view, from his point of view, it's the truth and the haqq and the best possible choice by his own choice, not by any other external consideration. So your consideration, why is this, why is that not, it's relative to your own desires, your own structure, your own being limited and created, and any created being is limited and needs other beings and so on. You need food. This does not apply for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You need satisfaction with this. You need to avoid pain. Pain is not defined for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the first place at all. Pain is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that the limited being, animals, for example, can feel pain in the case of an attack, and then they run away or try to treat themselves. Otherwise, if they don't feel pain, for example, a grazing animal, if he doesn't feel the pain of being bitten by a wild animal, he will not run away and will none of continue to exist. They will be finished. And if they are finished, the wild animals, the predators will get extinct, nothing will remain. So the balance is needed. So the pain and the suffering is a necessity for finite being. For unlimited being, existing, who is only one, doesn't make any sense. It's not well defined. There's not. He knows what is it, and he is the one who created it, but it's not well defined. Next. I don't want to go much deeper in that. Like, for example, when we say that the Son of God took human shape and came and suffered for our sake, they justify that he needed to relate to humans and know what's suffering by his own experience, because for mere knowledge is not enough. He doesn't need that. It doesn't make any sense. We know who is suffering in the universe is, because this is a limited. Every entity in the universe except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is created and limited, and these limited need each other. And for the design of the system, at least for this universe, is that there will be predators, there will be all of these things we see around us, and they will be what they call suffering and not suffering, so that you can save yourself. The animal can run away from the sea fire, he run away from the fire. Now fire will be definitely there. The earth could not be shaped without being distilled from clouds and fire and so on. So that basic design necessitates this. So why is the suffering? Why are the tsunamis and so on? It couldn't be otherwise. It will be a completely different universe in that case, which a different choice, which is inferior to this one in Allah's point of view.
This mentality whereby for God to know about suffering, if he's the one who created the template for all of it, he's all-knowing. By them saying he needs to be needs to have first-hand experience to enhance his
because the Trinity and the Christian faith, why to justify the crucifixion, it's always that this is God is sacrificing himself for people, saving them and so on. So he's omnibenevolent, or he all-loving. That's the definition of God. The moment something shows that he's not all-loving in that sense, which is clear, not all-loving in their sense, then he cannot exist. That's what leads to atheism. So the greatest portion of atheists is, or the main entry of atheism in the West, at least in the Christian West, so-called Christian West, is because of the issue of suffering. That's the only argument they have.
But what I mean is that for the people to say that the premise itself,
because because the definition in their mind that a God must be all loving. Where did you get that? A God is necessarily existing, living, and eternal. That's dictated by necessity of reason. And now we see the universe, we see what the revelation says. The revelation does not see anything about all loving, omnibenevolent. It does not say anything like that. So that's what we feel, because our limitation is maybe good for finite being, but not for the infinite. It doesn't fit for an infinite being. So that's the point. The definition of a divine being in their mind is the wrong definition. If you define it wrongly, he cannot exist. Really, something like what they have in their mind cannot exist. It's impossible. It's impossible.
But sorry, just on that one point about saying for God to appreciate suffering, he has to have a first hand. If he's the one who created us, he has absolute knowledge.
That's one. That's a footnote. But the fundamental point why they say he cannot exist is that he must be all loving. That's the reason all this philosophical discourse in the last 2 centuries ended that we say necessity of reason dictate that necessary existing exists, but our traditional point of view that says all loving does not apply to God. One philosopher said we must live with the fact that God may not love us all. All, the word all is the point. We have to live with that. Otherwise, we'll not have a consistent theory, which is true. So this assumption coming from the Christian background is not from other backgrounds. Do not have that. It's not in their conceptual world. It's not the way they were brought up from Shia. For example, let us take a very serious, good textual critic scholar, Bart Ehrman, one of the best living now. Excellent man. He, by digging in the scripture and studying it and studying all the accumulated knowledge the last 2 centuries about the books and the scripture and so on, concluded rightly that this Isa was misquoted there, plenty is fabricated there, a lot of his fantasy, etc. That's very clear. You don't need that. But they were struggling for 2 centuries to get that out from the limited amount of information. Then I saw a video. He was discussing with the one lady introducing him. He has a program, and he's now, I think, he's retiring now from the University of South or North Carolina, from one of the Carolinas anyway, and said how he started. He started like a fundamentalist, believing everything is the word of God, and then by studying it, recognize that cannot be. The contradictions are impossible. He discussed even Genesis and the Old Testament and so on. He did not go much in that, because for him, interesting thing is the New Testament, which is more fresher and closer, and written down closer to the events. While the Old Testament, we can trace back until 3 BC, 3 centuries BC. Before that, we have no idea how things came down, how they were put together. It's clearly over 1,000 years, plenty of fabrication and embellishment and joining together and so on. And we have up to 300 BC, we have the evidence of the Greek translation, the Septuagint, and the Dead Sea Scrolls. We can't hold that to iron fist, no doubt about that. So we can say up to that, that's what was written down and essentially fixed. Although there's embellishment after that until now, because if we compare the Dead Sea Scrolls, which are buried and nobody touched them and have been dated now with carbon dating and many other things, and then find the Septuagint, we find the translation fits essentially, at least the 5 first books, fit with that what in Dead Sea Scrolls, with small variations, which are obvious scribal errors, translation errors. But the other books, which were translated later in the Septuagint, but the translation to Greek must have ended in the 1st century anyway, so it's ancient. If we go to the Hebrew version, we have it in a full form. It's called the Masoretic text from the 10th century. It's copied from the copying process seems to be in some places near perfection. Like the book of Isaiah is almost perfect. Only 200 variations, mostly orthographic and minor ones. But the book of Jeremiah, which is, I think, more important for the history of Revelation and so on, the Masoretic text seem to be added about 10%. Maybe some of the additions that extraordinary notes creeping in, but someone must scrutinize that. I didn't get the time and the inclination to sit on that and analyze it. While the Dead Sea Scroll and the Septuagint, they seem to be the same size, and the translations will be quite accurate from that one. So there must be at that time either 2 versions. One was copied until now, which is a little bigger, or better point of view is that the copying process there has been embellished. In the case of Isaiah, they did not embellish it very much. We don't know why, but meaning the copying process, despite when for one book it is 100% reliable, the other one is not reliable, and they're clearly deliberate embellishment. So that's what we have. But at least if it goes over the 10% more or less, okay, we can tolerate that. We cannot assert anything before the 300 BC. We cannot assert anything with a certitude. Nothing. But we may be asserting even that Deuteronomy, which is really the real Torah, or contains some of the real Torah, the real revelation to Musa, in the last century, century before last, a man called Shapiro, is very controversial, claimed he found a scroll written in old Hebrew script. That's before in ancient Hebrew script, which was used exclusively before the Babylonic exile. After the Babylonic exile, they adopted the new script, which is completely different. Shape is different. You have to learn that separately. And he found it in the east of Jordan, in one cave there. And it was blackened with the time, was in a jar as usual. And it seems to be from a time before the exodus, before the Babylonic exile. It seems to be. And he was able to transcribe by putting light in a side way and meticulously transcribe like several pages of the. It turns out to be, seems to be a Deuteronomy only. That's number one. So I scroll around for Deuteronomy. Okay, it is well known that the 5 books are in 5 different or more scrolls. Okay, that's fine, no problem. It has significant differences from the Deuteronomy we have in the Scrolls and in the Septuagint. So between, even if we assume he's telling the truth and this is a truthful find and so on, what happened to this find that then is between the 300 years before, which we are certain we have in our hand, the one 300 years before that, 600 BC, before the Babylonic exile, that's the time roughly it belongs to, is having considerable changes, even content-wise, assuming Shapiro is telling the truth. Now, Shapiro went in Europe with this scroll trying to sell it at a high price, and they accused him of fabricating it as not true, etc., and so on. And it seemed to be that scroll disappeared, and Shapiro was found dead, killed maybe in some hotel, I think in Holland. Someone can check the story if you want, someone interested in these things. But the transcript, he gave it as a copy because it's his own handwriting. A copy, I think, is available in England somewhere, and a copy in Berlin, University of Berlin. Many scholars now reviewed that and say from the script type, because he copied it as it is, it seems to be genuine. It's really an ancient type. But the scroll itself is lost. But at least that piece we have in our hand. So assume the scroll exists, and he's transcribed as good as he can. And he was not lying. In the times from before the exile until 300 BC, the 300 years, there's significant changes in Deuteronomy, which is the core, the spinal cord of the Old Testament. That's the most important book. That's the book which contains the injunctions, a ruling, and so on. The other ones are either a historic book, collection of historic fixed up, like Genesis, most like 2 books or more joined together much later. And then Exodus is just the history of the Exodus, written by maybe people of that time. Doesn't contain much of any injunctions, maybe a few things here and there. And even that had been mostly played with and embellished a little bit along the time. And then we have Numbers, it's just counting the numbers, one Israel and so on, question mark, but maybe historical. And then the book of the Lawi's, Leviticus, Levite, about the priesthood and so on. This may be fabricated fully later. We don't know about that. That's not really the core, what they call Torah. The real Torah is the Deuteronomy. So even that, going just 3 centuries before the limit we have for in our hand now, is not, it seems to be that some embellishment happened in these 300 years. And who knows how much embellishment happened under the tyrannical kings in Israel and in Judea. And most of them were tyrannical and fighting and forcing priests to write and fabricate things for their favor. to justify their wars and killing and genocide, mass extermination. Completely obscure. In the case of Isa, it's closer. What we have is, we can say it's well established around 150 to 200 AD. Yeah, roughly what we have in our hand. After that, barely any embellishment from the main books. After that, but between the time of Isa, that century, is most likely also a lot of embellishment, but not enough to make the core invalid. And the core, you can get it out by textual critics, by comparison. So he did that. Slowly, he came to the conclusion that plenty of statements attributed to Isa are fabrication by necessity and so on, by comparing these and comparing the so-called apocrypha, which we found now by archaeology in the recent century, in Najah Hammadi and so on in Egypt, and other so-called apocrypha and hidden books and Christographica, and other books which were not known to the public for almost 1,500, 1,600 years, but they are conserved under the sands of Egypt, and they can be dated and so on. He concluded, and then he said, when I talked to that woman, said ultimately, now I have no faith. I don't think that I became an atheist. Okay, maybe, but she asked him, is that because you detected that this is all fabricated and so on, doesn't come from Isa? I said, no, not by that reason. It's because the problem was suffering. That's all that he said, full stop. And then they continued discussing the books and the embellishment and things like that, technicalities of textual critique. So I was quite surprised and shocked that he mentioned this, that the issue of suffering is not what. But I remind myself again, if you're coming from a Christian culture and background, the problem of this all-loving and omnibenevolent is a real problem. And this seems to be regarding usually as a fundamental definition of a divine being, because that's what was over 2,000 years of Christianity or 1,800 years of Christianity. Yeah, you have to liberate yourself from that and go to other necessity of reason, other religions, and take a look to the Quran, other places, and so on. So they can go, this is an assumption which based on certain fallacies creeping in Christianity, because an attempt to justify how come that crucifixion happened, what is the motivation of the divine for that, and things like that. Anyway, we don't want to go much deeper in that at the moment. That's another area of research. But this is usually in the Western Hemisphere. That's one of the main motivation or main reasons for falling into atheism. So it feels more comfortable or more rational to assume that this is a dead, blind, deaf nature. It's a mechanism. We can talk about love or no love, mercy or no mercy. It's a mechanism. That's necessary. It is not comforting. It's actually worse than the other one, but that's it. That's what you get there. If you come from this background and don't go out of it, of this tradition, and go to another type, more wider and more deeper rationality. But leave this aside. Let's continue with the tafsir. Next ayah.
اتل ما أوحي إليك من الكتاب وأقم الصلاة إن الصلاة تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون. Convey unto others whatever of this divine writ has been revealed unto thee, and be constant in prayer, for behold, prayer restrains man from loathsome deeds and from all that runs counter to reason, and remembrance of God is indeed the greatest good, and God knows all that you do. Next translation. Recite what has been revealed to you of the book and establish prayer. Prayer restrains indecency and wrongdoing, yet the remembrance of God during the prayer is of higher value. God knows all that you do.
So he's stressing the prayer, establishing prayer, in the general meaning of it, establishing the religion. But really, the current salah, the salah itself is being constant in the salah is a cornerstone and a fundamental part of establishing prayer. But establishing prayer, if it used in a wider context, means establishing the whole deen, the whole religion. Why establish the prayer? Because the prayer has the following benefits. It's mentioning the benefits, not the reason for prayer. The reason for prayer is just to enslave yourself to Allah, to recognize Allah as the ultimate sovereign and the Lord. That's the reason for its enactment. And keep that coming back and again regularly in mind. The result of that, the hikmah of that, what will result in that is for those who really establish properly and focus on it as it should be, it will be a barrier from you falling into committing the indecency and abominable and rejectionable acts. But even greater than that, in it keeps you, keep the remembrance of Allah present in your mind as much as possible. You cannot have it continuously. That's not possible for a finite being, but it will remind you at least several times a day, 3 to 5 times, whatever. If you join 2 salah, 2, and 1, then you have 3 times, 3 opportunities to get the remembrance of Allah in your mind and be present in your life, and then refresh it after a few hours and so on. And every day you have this refreshment. Otherwise, you will end losing connection to Allah, forgetting about Him completely. As you see, for example, for those who do not pray, Allah is not present in their focus or in any activity, and then necessarily then they don't care about what they are doing. Is it abomination or not? Is it this or this? This the opposite. And it's like a feedback loop. Then you fall in indecency and in abominable and rejectionable acts and back forth. This makes you forget Allah more and forget about prayer more and back and forth. So if you establish it and hold tight to it, it will prevent that from happening. And when you avoid that, prevent it from happening, that feedback to be more constant and will establish in prayer. And Allah is aware about all what you are doing. All what you are doing, making and doing. Next ayah. So this is the hikmah of salah, not the illah. It's not the reason. So nobody should say, I pray as regular as I can, but still I'm not able to restrain myself from adultery or fornication or something like that. So I should give up prayer. No, that would be the wrong way. That meaning that avoiding fahisha is the illah, the reason with which the law, the obligation of prayer is connected. It comes and goes with it. No, it is not. Obligation of prayer is stand alone by itself, based on being the slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it has these benefits. If the benefits don't come, then you should be thinking, why is this benefit not come? Maybe I'm not establishing it properly. Maybe I'm not focusing on it properly. Maybe I should go back and review what's going on. What's the problem? But the obligation is still there. You're not allowed to give up prayer because I cannot stop drinking, for example, stop taking drugs. So let me forsake prayer. No, that's not the way it works. Okay, that's the difference between illah, reason, and purpose. The purpose does not need to be the reason. The reason does not to be the purpose. It's a bit difficult, deep, but you have to keep that in mind if you want to do good and proper usul al-fiqh.
Okay, next ayah.
Yeah, next ayah.
ولا تجادلوا أهل الكتاب إلا بالتي هي أحسن إلا الذين ظلموا منهم وقولوا آمنا بالذي أنزل إلينا وأنزل إليكم وإلهنا وإلهكم واحد ونحن له مسلمون. And do not argue with the followers of earlier revelation other than in a most kind manner, unless it be such of them as are bent on of evil doing, and say, we believe in that which has been bestowed from on high upon us, as well as that which has been bestowed upon you. Or our God and your God is one and the same, and it is unto him that we all surrender ourselves. Next translation. Do not argue with the people of the book, except in the kindest manner, except those among them who are unjust, and say, we believe in what was revealed to us and in what was revealed to you. Our God and your God is one, and we are submissive to him.
So that's some people think this ayah and the one before is a Madani ayah and being written back in a Makki surah. I don't think this is a good solution, because in Mecca, some people with the book, Jews and some Christians, were coming there and making arguments of Prophet ﷺ. For example, a delegation from Abyssinian, from Christian there, not sent, I don't think sent by Negos, Najashi himself, most likely from the people there, came to scrutinize what is about this prophet. And they, when they heard, they started weeping, and some of them embraced Islam, told them, say Allah. So the Quraysh told them, you are the worst delegation ever. Your people send you to refute this man, and you follow him. They say, sorry, we don't listen to you. We don't care what you're saying. We have heard the truth, you follow. Although this is in a Madani surah, but the seerah, such stories are mentioned. And also Jews were going either openly or secretly. For example, Abdullah bin Salam, who announced his Islam after the Messenger of Allah arrived in Medina, he said, there's a narration for him with reasonable isnad, that when he heard about Hassan, he went incognito in Mecca and watched him from far away. He did not contact him and got information about him and so on from far away. And he said his face and his general behavior from far away does not look like a liar. But he kept that secret until the Messenger came to Medina, and then he announced his belief, but announced him in a way which is mentioned in Bukhari and so on, which is that he came to Messiah Allah, witnessed that he is a messenger and so on, and told the Prophet ask the Jews about me and so on, but they are people who fabricate and lie openly. Let me hide and ask them what that be. And they will tell you my belief. So they came, he invited some Jewish leaders and so on, say, what's the rank of Abdullah bin Salam in under you? Say, he's the best of us, he's our scholar, he's our main scholar, etc. And so on. Say, what do you think if someone like that embraces Islam? Say, Allah will protect him from this. Nobody of us will leave Judaism and join you. We don't believe in you and so on. They say, there's no way he can do that. And then he said, okay, Abdullah bin come. He was hiding in a second room or in hideout. He came out, say, people, you have already said that we witness there is no deity except Allah and the Muhammad Messenger Allah. And they say, this man, not the one we just were talking about, this one of our lowest of the low, is not our main scholar. We meant someone else. He's just a secondary scholar, second-class scholar. He doesn't know what he's saying. Immediately, in the same session, they started fabricating and lying against him. What they call it in modern times, the way Israeli propaganda was, Hasbara or something. They're skilled in that. They are able to do it. And that's it. So, and then he called his auntie, called and so on. And he, part of the story, interestingly, when the Prophet arrived and someone said, oh, sons of Fulan and Fulan, the Prophet you're waiting for has come. So he was in a palm tree, working on his palm tree, because they were living from agriculture. And then he came down, almost fell. So his auntie told him, you jump down when you hear that this prophet has come, as if you hear Musa bin Imran came out of the grave. They say, this one is equal to Musa, or maybe higher. He said, are you telling the truth? And his auntie later, when he embraced Islam, she embraced Islam and some of his other relatives. So so he was there, according to his narration, incognito. So there were people coming, by people coming non-incognito to ask him about the Qarnayn and all these things like mentioned Surah Al-Kahf. So it's very, very possible that these ayahs are being revealed in Mecca and reinforced again and maybe recited in Medina once more in a similar occasion. So in Mecca, it was not like just isolated. Nobody knew outside. We have the immigrants to Habasha went there, and the Mecca sending delegation to ask them to be extradited and vice versa. There was an interaction. There was business transaction. The Qurayshis are business people. They're traders. They were going to South Arabia. South Arabia is full of Jews there and some Christians. They must have been interacting. So these news spread at that time, quite early in the Mecca time, far away in Arabia, even possibly even to the border of Syria and so on. So that's the claim that these are Madani ayah, which had been revealed in Medina, written back. is based on people who do not really follow the seerah and know the details of history in sufficient clarity, so they make conclusions based on just, this looks like Madani. No, it's not. It fits in the surah with style exactly as it fits in that place. Next ayah.
Next ayah.
So we're discussing with the people of the book, because some of them, from the Jews coming to Mecca, were quite nasty and evil, and some not. So don't argue with them and discuss with them except in a most beautiful way. Except those who transgress and use abusive language. And tell them in any way, whatever you claim, our God, the people of previous revelation, is the same like your God, even if they have a wrong idea about God in certain aspects. So this is addressed to Jews and Christians, without any doubt. In general, anyone who claimed to have a revelation before of this style. At the time, it was only Jews and Christians there, or various factions. Some of them were, at the time, some of them were worshipping angels. Some of them, the situation was not. Some people think it was like now the rabbinic Jews, clearly monotheistic. No, they were people who are complete tribes who are following the way of the Kabbalah and things like that, which acknowledges Baal and things like that, which has come now with the Epstein story again on the forward. Now it's like a secret movement in Judaism, because the rabbinic Judaism took over and was overwhelming. But at that time, it was not. There was other. We have Samaritan Jews who believe only in the 5 first books, don't believe in the other books at all. Even the book of Joshua, they say it's a historical book, is not a revelation. So we have very, and all believe in the God of Musa and Abraham. The same with the Christian, even if the majority of them at the time were Trinitarian, still it's the same God, misunderstood as a Trinity because they exaggerating the rank of Isa into a divine being. But the God is the same. It's not a pagan God. It's the creator of the universe, agreed by all of these. Although they did not get his all attributes and his what he deserves and deserve right, but he's still the same. But our deity is the same like your deity. We don't have the deity of the Hindus and the deity of the Turks or shamans. No, we have the same deity, which is mentioned in the old scripture, the new scripture, and the Quran. Carry on. So it's very important. It's very important to stress that. Even if they say, for example, some Christians say, "Oh, no, Muslim worship another God," and so on. That's because they try to be defensive, claiming that their God is the correct one only with these attributes they have. The all-loving, the one dying on the cross, and so on. No.
Let me know when is a good time to stop, inshallah.
Okay. What's the next? Let's see. Maybe we'll stop here.
وكذلك أنزلنا إليك الكتاب فالذين آتيناهم الكتاب يؤمنون به ومن هؤلاء من يؤمن به وما يجحد بآياتنا إلا الكافرون. So we continue for a bit. Just let me know when it's a good time to stop. For it is thus that we have bestowed this divine writ from on high upon thee, O Muhammad, and they too, whom we have vouchsafed this divine writ, believe in it, just as among those followers of earlier revelation in brackets, there are some who believe in it, and none could knowingly reject our messages unless it be such as would deny an obvious truth. Next translation. Hence, we have sent down the book to you, Prophet. Those to whom we previously gave the book believe in it, and so do some of those other people. No one rejects our revelations except those who deny an undeniable truth.
So even in Mecca, some who received, when revelation came down to Muhammad and they interviewed him, some of them became believer. The follower of various branches of Christianity, some of the Sabiin follow John the Baptist, maybe one came. Maybe the one from Oman who has the scrolls of Luqman. There seems to be maybe someone like Christian. The Sahif of Luqman seems to be extinct because it has all wisdom and so on. Here for himself, say, I have the Sahif to Luqman. Say, show me. So he mentioned to him what it contains. Say, this is good. I'm not denying that's good, but I have much better. And they read to him the Quran. Say, repeat that to me again. And he read it again. Say, your words have reached the bottom of the ocean. That's something new, something completely different. Not the Sahif of Luqman. It's another category of things. And he embraced Islam. So there must be some kind of branch of Luqman. The word Luqman seems to be like Luqa and so on, seems to be a Christian, a branch of Christianity which may be extinct because deep in Arabia, like a remainder of monotheist Nazarene, few may have survived. And then when Islam came, they were all absorbed in Islam. So leaving in the world essentially only the Trinitarian, essentially only the Trinitarian. But at that time before Islam, they were very, especially the best place to have a refuge far away from these empires and their persecution is Arab Peninsula, deep inside Arabia and all the way. And the same with the people of Hudud in Najran. We don't know exactly which, maybe they belong to some earlier non-Trinitarian group. That's most likely. Some people speculate they may be a Nestorian, maybe even pre-Nestorian. We don't know. And so on. So that's the situation. Some of them embraced Islam and some did not. Some were very hostile, some not. Like some from Makkah, from these your own people. Some believe in it. But those who don't believe it, the Quran describes this to us. What was the ayah says at the end?
At the end,
the second part of the ayah.
وَمَا يَجْحَدُ بِآيَاتِنَا إِلَّا الْكَافِرُونَ.
Only the disbeliever, the one who are bent to deny the truth, they will reject our ayah and they will be juhud. Maybe deep in their heart, they know it is not so, but they publicly claim, no, we don't believe in that, we don't accept it. Motivated with various things, power, wealth, etc. As we know, various motivation of arrogantly denying the truth. What's the next ayah? Let us see if we stop here. What's the time now?
The time is 3:45. Next ayah. وَمَا كُنْتُ تَتْلُو مِنْ قَبْلِهِ مِنْ كِتَابِ وَلَا
تخطه بيمينك.
Yeah. إذا
لارتاب المبطلون. Maybe we start next time with this, yeah?
Sure, no problem, inshallah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's one of the evidence of that you were not reading a book before, nor you will be able to write before that.
Okay, excellent. So, okay, question answers. Okay, I've had two questions that were submitted, time sensitive, so I'll start with those.
Yeah.
Also, some people have been spamming. Some of the questions may have already been answered, so you can refer to earlier halakas. But anyway, let's just start with the first one. Okay, so this one is in relation to somebody my wife knows, whose son passed away. Okay, so he's asking for guidance regarding a recent death in the family. My 20-year-old son passed away 2 days ago. He had 22-year-old son.
20 years. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He had severe special needs and lacked the mental capacity to care for himself, pray, or manage his own affairs.
Mm-hmm.
He left behind some money, and I need clarity on how to handle it correctly, Islamically.
Mm-hmm.
Here is our situation. The deceased, my 20-year-old son, lacked mental capacity. Surviving family, myself, the mother, his father, 2 healthy adult brothers, and 1 sister who also has severe special needs and lacks mental capacity.
Okay.
Could you please help me with the following questions? So the first question, since my son did not have mental capacity to pray or perform Hajj, does any of his money need to be spent on Hajj proxy, Hajj badal on his behalf?
It's not obligatory on him. He did not reach age of obligatory obligation. He has no obligation whatsoever.
Because of mental impairment.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 2, inheritance distribution. Islamically, how exactly is his money divided among his surviving mother, father, 2 brothers, and the special needs sister?
The ayah of Surah Al-Nisa is very clear. If someone passes away, that's the first ayah, and the money goes essentially to the children, but he has no children, he was never married, and he has no wife, obviously, and so on. So this is the second ayah does not apply. So remains the first ayah. First ayah mentioned if he has no offspring, then his mother get the third. That's faridah. Mm-hmm. And then the rest goes to the nearest of kin, male of kin. The nearest of male of kin is whom? The father. So 1/3, 2/3.
What about 2 brothers? And he's got 2 brothers.
Nothing. Brothers get only in the case of kalala. Kalala is the one who has no branches down or no roots up. That's the kalala.
So it's just mother and father in this case. 2/3 from the father
and grandfather. If father is missing, etc.
Okay.
All the up and down. Not
So
branch.
mother, was it one mother 1/3, father 2/3? Yeah.
Mother is third by faridah, by the exact term of the Quran.
Okay. And father is 2/3, is it?
The remaining then, yeah.
The remaining. Okay.
Ta'asib, they call it ta'asib. That's because, or you could say, because of the hadith, whatever the fara'id left, this is the faridah. The ayah mentioned only faridah. فَلِأُمِّهِ الثُّلُث. Does not mention the father. But then the hadith of father, and then the application in the hadith of Jabir is that the remaining after all the fara'id has been, that's mentioned the Quran as faridah, the remaining after the fara'id goes to the nearest kin, the nearest of kin, who is a male, the male next of kin. The hadith says the male man. So which, the one of the rare occasions we know the word man could mean male and female. So this is the male man. In this case, who is the nearest? The father, along the genealogy.
Okay. And the third question, some of it was going to be redundant because it's been answered, but I'll ask anyway. If we would like to put some or all of his money in sadaqah for him, is that permissible if everyone agrees?
Oh yeah, no problem. This is you and his mother. You can do sadaqah for him, yeah. Yeah.
And the follow on is, and what about my special needs daughter? Can I make the decision on her behalf? Well, to be honest, it doesn't apply because
but it doesn't apply anyway. Even the other brothers do not have any share anyway.
Because of mother, because
yeah.
he's not qalala,
yeah. So that's no problem. The father and the mother are the only heirs here, by certainly. And whatever they do with the money, he may have this. Where he got the money, I don't know. Maybe he inherited from a grandfather, or it is a wasiyah from someone else.
I think it was a trust placed on him,
or maybe a trust or something. Then they are the 1/3, 2/3, and whatever they do, each one can decide what he does with it. Doesn't need to consult with the others, because the money now is the money of the mother and of the father. Paid to the mother can decide, I'll put in charity, or she can decide, I'll take it for a world tour. This is her decision. It's her money. The same with the father.
Okay, excellent, inshallah. Okay, so that's that question done.
Yeah.
There's another question. This is going to become a bit of a hot topic. It's on the issue of women in dawah. So there has been some back and forth, some videos. Maybe if I had time, I'll do some research on this and make a more detailed video. But this question has come through. I have some questions for Sheikh Massari, and I would appreciate a thorough answer on the topic of women. I'll read the whole thing out first, yeah? Okay. I have some questions for Sheikh al-Massari, and I would appreciate a thorough answer on the topic of women giving dawah in public, providing evidence from the Kitab and Sunnah for the below. Number one, what is the hukum and ruling for women giving dawah? Is dawah something women don't need to think about or carry? Is dawah only for men? Number two, are women allowed to give dawah in public? And in brackets, social media, television, conferences, classes.
Yeah, this is easy. You don't need thorough. Da'wah is highly desirable and obligatory for those who are qualified for it, and there's nobody else doing it, because da'wah is fard kifaya. If the ummah fails to do the da'wah, they fail to carry on the message of Allah, because he said in Hajjat al-Wada', بلغوا عني ولا آية. Report from me even one ayah. So the ummah is obliged, because he is sent to all mankind. Obviously, he passed away before even a fraction of mankind has heard him as well. So it has to be brought, and the ummah is after him, the one who will carry the da'wah as an ummah, as a community. Now, this is fard al-kifaya. This is fard al-kifaya. If sufficiency is there, you are not obliged, but it's highly desirable, because calling to Allah is one of the best deeds you can do. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلٍ مَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا. Who is better than one who calls to Allah and make and perform good deeds? So it's one of the best, maybe the best good deed you can do, calling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's number one, and this for his ummah, and the ummah are men and women equally exactly. That's number one. Okay? Nobody is exempt from that, neither woman nor woman, unless someone brings a solid evidence. Actually, woman, as a category of special category of woman, the wife of Prophet, had been given heavy hijab, order to stay home, and so on, specifically to devote themselves to remembrance and studying what has been revealed, so they can give fatwa to the people. واذكرن ما يتلى في بيوتكن من آيات الله والحكمة. Why? Study it. Why? So that they will give fatwa to the ummah, especially things which related to family life, sexuality, things like that, because they are aware about that. Nobody is aware. They are the one who has to broadcast that. So that's, I think, this question. So this is the da'wah. If there's no more da'wah or very few da'wah, not enough to carry da'wah so all humanity can hear it, and obviously we don't have enough. I don't think we have ever in history enough da'wah. Then the obligation goes way wider and wider, then until all ummah is included. I don't think it will reach that level, but we have to have more du'at, obviously, to carry the da'wah, both male and female. Good? I think that's number one. Number two, da'wah is by necessity in public. That's the normal state of affair, unless you are under oppressive regime, under this, and this, and this. So it's in public. So woman in da'wah public, why? What is the issue of woman in da'wah in public? What's the problem with that? Some people tell you that the voice of woman is awrah. This is such a despicable point of view that the one who claims that must be ashamed of himself. Because if it had been awrah generally, then it would be stronger for the wife of Dr. Salam. But they were talking behind the veil, and so they were not allowed outside the veil because of the special ruling for them in Surah Al-Ahzab. But otherwise, they were talking. We were asking them. Aisha was discussing with people behind the veil, and if someone makes a joke, she was laughing loudly. So that's not true. So what's the problem with public? How to appear with the Islamic dress in public, which is the jilbab and khimar. Jilbab and khimar because of the Quran. Anything else is no evidence for it. So you don't need even the hadith about if a woman believes in Allah and Day of Judgment and she is hayd, maturity, nothing can be seen except the face and the hands. You don't need even that hadith. That's stating the fact which is established by necessity before that. Because nothing in the universe is, you cannot, you're not allowed to look at it. Nothing in the universe is awrah unless Allah says this is awrah. Stop there. That's it. So, but we have an explicit hadith, actually coming from two channels of narration, which essentially contain that face and hands are exempt, are not awrah. Explicitly say that. Not enacted. No, it is enacted by necessity. Necessity, why? Because everything in the world is created for you. Created sam and basar for you to use it everywhere. So you can look at everything until I say, no, you cannot look at this because this is I define as off limit for looking. Like, for example, you're not looking to awrah, and then he defines what's awrah. Or he tell you, you cannot look, for example, from the keyhole in a house, privacy of the people. That's spying, that's haram. You listen to everything except what the Messenger of Allah clearly say, if you listen to people without their permission while talking privately, you will have molten lead poured in your ears in Yawm al-Qiyamah. Bring that to the intelligence services to see what they are doing. Then that listening is not permitted. Any other listening is okay. Etc. So you don't need any evidence that the face is not awrah and so on. No, it's not awrah until proven otherwise.
Ultimately, what happens, obviously, general permissibility, and what the kind of rebuttals people bring is this scholar said this, it becomes book club. It's always the same thing. It always happens to be.
They come usually for that with the wife of the Prophet. The hadith. But the issue of the wife is very clear. It's completely clear that it is special for them from the beginning of the ayah until the end. And the
brother also, a brother who I was conversing with about this subject yesterday, he said that he gave the example, the same ayah also mentions about the wives not being allowed to be married after the Prophet ﷺ.
Yeah, that's exactly. Because they are the mothers of the believer. This is a special standing given to them.
So what he said was, why does one apply and the other doesn't apply?
Yeah. Independent of that.
Yeah.
Independent of that. The whole series until the end is for the wife of the Prophet. Ya nisa an-nabi lastunna ka ahad min. You are not like other women. You are excluded from many permission for other women. You are special. And this speciality is this and this and this and this and this.
So one of the people, again, I have to go through the video in detail. He mentions about using them as an example and then building an entire construct out of this based on, I don't know, imagination. Are you familiar with people using that as an
what's the example?
The example of the Prophet's wives as somehow their actions becoming therefore an example for everyone.
The Quran says clearly they are not good. They are not a good example. Say I heard once in a sheet from some Egyptian Salafi putting in the mouth of small girls, Ummahat al-Mu'mineen are they my example in hijab and so on. Qudwati, my example, which I follow in hijab and so on. This is wrong. They are not Qudwa Hasana. The Quran says clearly they are not Qudwa Hasana. First of all, in these ayah, he said, if one of you commit fahisha mubayyana, she will have a double of the punishment. That's number one. So it could happen from them. Alhamdulillah, nobody committed, but it shows clearly it can happen from them. Secondly, two of them were rebuked in Surah Al-Tahrim. The story of Aisha and Hafsa is known. Surah Al-Tahrim. The Quran does not mention Aisha and Hafsa by name, but Ibn Abbas asked Umar. So one day say, I was waiting to ask Umar, who are these two women? Because he heard the two women are Aisha and Hafsa. But he wanted confirmation from an insider because Hafsa is his daughter. He must know what's going on. So he said one day, everything was relaxed. I took for him the water for making wudu. And what he doing for wudu? He asked Umar, say, Amir al-Mu'mineen, I have a question. Umar said, ask. He said, who are the two women mentioned in Surah Al-Tahrim? Said, Wallahi, I knew one day you will ask this question. That you will dig that. Because you search for everything, don't neglect anything. It is as you have heard from everyone. Most of you already heard it. But you want from the horse's mouth, so to say. Because Abu Bakr passed away. So Umar, the father of Hafsa, should be the one who is more competent to answer this question. It is Hafsa and Aisha. That's what the people tell you is true. It's only the two who are rebuked in the ayah and threatened with talaq and so on. So they're not a good example. Honestly. If they're a good example in hijab, why they shouldn't be a good example in going and wage war against the legitimate Khalifa like Aisha did? Yes, she was taken a ride, she was lied to by Abdullah bin Zubayr, all of that, but still. And she's in violation of the order. Qarna fi buyutikunna, stay home. Don't go out. Just devote to memorizing Quran as much as you can and Sunnah as much as you can, and so that people can ask you and learn from you. Hafsa is better in complying that than Aisha, unfortunately. Unfortunately for Aisha, but not for Hafsa. She has the Mus'haf, the first Mus'haf at home, and her job was just reading the Mus'haf to people, dictating them because she was a reader and writer, and correcting their writing and show them the copy, or copy for them possibly, because she was meticulous at keeping that copy. Very meticulously. So that's it. So we don't need to invent things. That's it. They just that people have diseases in their mind and diseases in their heart.
I mean, it's sedimented over time just from this Salafism, which is just basically a retarded brush on everything. So just to close out the question, so are women allowed to give dawah in public? You already answered it, but and this specifically mentioned social media, television, conferences, co-ed classes. Is there a specific form or way that women are limited to when giving dawah?
What form? Which limitation? Same like limitation of men. They should do it with Lati Ahsan. They should not insult the other one. Should not insult the gods of the other one. Use good language. And if the other ones insult even Allah, they should not be countered by insulting their gods. Because the Quran prohibits that specifically. If they insult our Prophet, you don't go back by insulting Isa, for example, with the Christian. But no man or woman, Muslim would do that except an utter ignorant one. And this one is not qualified for da'wah. People should tell him, listen, you are not qualified. Just do your salah and do your zakah and spend money for the people doing da'wah. If you want to participate in da'wah, what's about supporting financially? And just shut up. You are not qualified. Stop blubbering.
And the final question, which you already answered, is she allowed to give without a niqab or barrier?
خلاص انتهينا. We answered that.
There's
only one point that some engaged in da'wah, new Muslims, they don't seem to be having their khimar. That's because some interpretations about the khimar is the ayah of the khimar is just for the high desirability and not forbidding. But I would say this is the ayah at face could be either at face it's just commanding God. فَلْيَضْرِبْنَ بِخُمُرِهِنَّ عَلَى جُيُوبِهِنَّ etc. Looks like it's a command, and the command could be either for desirability or obligation according to general principle, the correct general principle. We have to have an evidence that it is for obligation. Well, no evidence needed for desirability. But if you take these two ahadith and the explanation of Ibn Abbas together, and they are well established, I would say, and narrated properly, then it is really haram to not to cover the head and so on. Jilbab, I don't think anybody arguing with that. There's no doubt about that. Something covering the whole body. They may argue it can't be two pieces, one piece. This is secondary argument. As long as it covers all the body, from ankle upward to the neck, it's there's no issue there. And not transparent, so you see the skin, nor it is so tight to show the body forms, especially the area around the genitals. It should be fluffy enough there. If that's enough.
Also, I mean, people always come up with this free mixing stuff, all this stuff. This is not based on anything.
That's not based on it. Based on statement of some people and things like that, which makes no sense anyway.
And anyone who listens to this, if they
or corrupted souls and so on, yeah.
If anyone has a question on it, when this comes out, spread it far and wide and invite critique.
As a matter of fact, the issue of niqab and hijab, hijab is really behind the wall completely. It's not even niqab is not a hijab. Hijab is something else. Hijab behind the curtain or behind the wall. That's the hijab. And the Quran says use the word hijab only that. Nobody will be addressed by Allah, at least in life in dunya, except from behind the veil. You don't see the divine being. You hear the voice only. So hijab is that one. Now about niqab, we have few ahadith which indicates that one is reasonably well established that a mother of one who I don't think about the level of isnad, the one who was martyred in Badr. She came to Messenger of Allah, said, and she was mutanaqqiba, wearing the niqab. So the Messenger of Allah, tell me about my son and so on. Is he in paradise? So I can hold myself and be patient, or otherwise say, did you lose your mind? That's the full isnad. The good hadith is this way. The other one is more expanded. The isnad is not to that level, but it corresponds with that, except with one addition. And that she said, did you lose your mind? Is it only one paradise, one Jannah? It is Jinan, multiple gardens, and your son hit the Firdaus al-A'la, the supreme Jannah. What are you talking about? What's nonsense you are saying? And then some people say, how do you dare wearing niqab in presence of the Messenger of Allah? And she answered, even if I lose my son, I did not lose my shame or my bashfulness. So why they asked this question, meaning in the custom at that time, wearing a niqab is one of two things. Either to show that you are a high class, like the high class Qurayshi woman. Yeah, high class Qurayshi woman, and from high tribe and so on, to show you're above the common people. And second, women with questionable reputation. They want to cover their identity. So it's some kind of covering your identity, prostitutes and things like that. Like in the Old Testament. One of the persons mentioned there, she wore a niqab and sit near to the temple. So the one passerby she was targeting thought she is a prostitute, temple prostitute. And they used to have a niqab. So nobody could recognize them. So that's the two things. So she answered him, no, neither for this, no, neither I am a woman who covers up for any evil doing or prostitution, nor I am arrogant, especially in the presence of Messenger of Allah. You should not be arrogant. If you're arrogant elsewhere, here is not acceptable. How can you cover your face? How can you wear niqab in the presence of Messenger of Allah? And she answered, no. The reason for that is that I'm used to be bashful, to be feeling ashamed to be exposed. That's it. It's not arrogance, nor it is any. And there's another hadith. The problem it is the isnad is very dark. You cannot establish it. It's under Albani classified it as weak or fabricated, and which says a woman who's also having a niqab, and allegedly the Messenger of Allah told her, Ya Amat Allah, slave woman of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, expose your face. Exposing the face is far. Showing the face is a sign of people of Islam. It seems to be similar to the other hadith, which is the better isnad, in the sense that exposing the people of Islam are not covering for zina. They are not working as prostitutes. No, they are arrogant. So why cover the face? Yeah. So this is a weak one. Isnad is Muslim because there is baqiyya from, without saying I hear, and baqiyya is mudallis tadis taswiyah. For that reason, and some who is mashayikh are majhulin, unknown. So it could be fabricated, but it doesn't look like fabricated. So if there's anything about niqab, is something negative against niqab, not positive. There's a story about Aisha going to the wedding of Safiya, because of jealousy, she wanted to see and so on. And she was mutanaqqibah. Obviously, Aisha was under hijab because Safiya was in the beginning of the 7th year. Messenger of Allah took her spoils of war and then freed her and married her and gave her freedom as a dowry and married her. And after arriving Medina, she had like a small wedding party in the Medina, and she wanted to spy because she is the most beautiful woman in the universe. That was enough for Aisha to hear. So she went there, mutanaqqiba, so nobody can recognize her. But possibly because she is under hijab, possibly. And the Messenger of Allah noticed her. You know, if it's your wife, you notice her, even if with a niqab. And he looked and saw her eyes, and he recognized her. And she tried to run away, go back to her home. And then he caught her. Say, ماذا رأيت يا عائشة? That's in طبقات الكبرى. She said, I see a Jewish and the Jews. All of these are Jews. And she is a Jewish woman. She said, don't say that. She embraced Islam, and her Islam is correct and deep and proper. That's all what it is. So she was mutanaqqiba. The narration say, mutanaqqiba tanakkuran, to cover her identity, which may mean that when they go out of the house, they were not usually having a niqab. I once asked Elias, because Elias knows about these ahadith and so on, more about these details. He said, we don't even know what the Prophet said if they go out of the house. But if they are in house or in a place where they can have a curtain or a place far away from men or behind the tent or something like that, then they are behind that, all their body. But if they are out, they are obliged for the jilbab and obviously the khimar. But we have no evidence that they must have niqab. But I would say if they are obliged at home and so on to have, then outside they may conclude that a niqab will be the best substitute for the proper hijab. Maybe, but this is for the wife of the Prophet again. So that's what we have in niqab coming in the Sunnah. We have also Hind, when she came for the bay'ah to Messenger of Allah after the conquest of Mecca, she was mutanakkira again, to cover her identity. And the Messenger of Allah recognized her from her comments. He did not recognize her at the beginning, because he doesn't know very much about her, not like Aisha, obviously. And then after some comments, he noticed a hint that yes. And then there was a dialogue between them, you can see in the seerah. And on the same occasion, she complained about Abu Sufyan and his stinginess and so on, and mean character, etc. So that's what we have there. That's the only place where niqab is mentioned. It's, as far as there may be other similar occasions. All other occasions, interaction with women, Muslim and non-Muslim, Jews and so on, there's no mention of niqab or non-niqab, or khimar or non-khimar, or jilbab or no jilbab. There's no mention. It is the custom of the people how they wear. At that time, the people usually had outside, they have jilbab, usually, not always. And head cover was a standard for everyone outside, it seems to be. But it was not required from the people in public anyway, Muslim and otherwise. It's only required for Muslim as his own, required by her own belief. For those who believe it's obligatory or highly desirable, but not for others. All what is required for others publicly, Muslims or otherwise, is that they should have the big awra covered. That's between the knees halfway to the knee until the navel, above the bones of the hip bones. That's it. That's the one which has to be covered. And this is to be enforced by the state because of the ayah in Surah Al-A'raf. That's it. Yeah, Bani Adam, because this is Bani Adam. Now, Bani Adam, some of you are not believer. That this to Bani Adam is clarified by the Messenger of Allah in the Hijjah of the 9th year, when he sent Ali to announce the beginning of Surah Bara'ah, to terminate various covenants, etc., and so on, and extend certain covenants, and to announce that next year no mushrik will be allowed to come to the haram. And this year already nobody is allowed to do tawaf around the house while he is naked, because they were doing tawaf nakedness. And Ibn Abbas explained what is required to be out of this nakedness, at least something like a short. Then you are not naked in the public and near the haram. So the state has to enforce that in public, even if it is interfere with the people. You can't tawaf around the haram for the mushrikeen, was according to their belief. Even that doesn't prevent from the state enforcing it, simply because this is a public affair and it has nothing to do with the freedom of expressing your religion. It doesn't go to that going naked. And some religions, for example, monks of the Genie religion in India, they go in the market naked with genitals exposed. This will not be allowed under Islamic State. Just wear a short and then go naked if you want. Anyway, that's what the state can interfere with in the public life. The state, a state authority enforced by the state power. What every person is obliged to committing haram or halal, that's it according to his belief. Or for believing women and believing men, the commands are there. For jilbab, قل لأزواجك وبناتك ونساء المؤمنين, not to the Jews. يدنين عليهن من جبههن, should wear jilbab. The others are not obliged. And the state will not enforce on them. The same with the khimar. قل للمؤمنين يغضوا من أبصارهم, etc. for the mu'minin, and قل للمؤمنات, the same thing, lower their gaze and to protect their chastity. And then adding these extra things for women, believing women, not for non-believer. Quran is clear. Just go to the Quran, you are cured. And in the Sunnah confirms that, if you read it correctly, not go into an imaginary world of nonsense. Also, even just the command not to wear niqab in Hajj. So niqab is most likely the reason for that, maybe the reason, or maybe the hikmah, is that in Hajj, nobody should be distinct from the others excessively. So niqab for women make them either suspicious, you don't expect a prostitute to come to Hajj, but make them feel that they're higher than the others. And Hajj is designed so that everyone is equal to everyone else. Men are having the same clothing, very simple clothing, and women similarly, but they're allowed to cover the whole body and have the sewn dress because their awra is extended according to Quran and Sunnah. That's it, but not the face. So that Muhrima does not wear niqab and gloves, meaning these things is this most like a sign of distinction and elevation. Does not fit for Hajj. Almost certainly that's the reason. It didn't say in the hadith, but we can deduce it. That's the reason for that. So even the niqab and the gloves is excessive. And at the time of the revelation, it was a sign of arrogance or suspicion in the case of the face specifically. And this should not be in a Muslim society. So that's concerning niqab. Most likely all evidence is against niqab, not for niqab. But we cannot say it is prohibited. It's okay.
Okay, and also just to clarify, it is so important for women to be involved in dawah. You have you're being bombarded by feminists on TikTok and all these kind of things, and then it's a shame that it's entirely neglected. And you have people who are in the dawah now berating sisters for wanting to get involved in countering this kind of propaganda. So one of the brothers I was discussing with yesterday is heavily involved in dawah, is running an Islamic institute and churning out very knowledgeable people. And if people like this, of caliber like this, and sisters who are affiliated with this are somehow rebuked and into not doing dawah what kind of a mess are we going to end up with?
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
essential work to do. This
That's
is
not about
essential.
practicality and importance, but it is the principles are clear. There is no.
I mean, and also it's just ultimately it's always the cancer of the Madkhali and the Wahhabi, where they make up they make up their own premise and then berate everyone else who doesn't stand according to their premise. When
Exactly.
in actual fact, all they have is basically petrodollars. They're a blip in history which has been fueled by
But anyway,
petrodollars.
luckily, recently they have been smashed. I think even politically, and the leading countries have been exposed as weak and as traitors. And
also anyone who's listening to this, if anyone has a problem with it, attack us publicly.
Yeah,
bring any arguments you have.
No problem with that.
Bring any arguments you have, and it will be taken on.
Exactly.
Also, one other thing, we have a series of 4 videos coming out this week and next week, which covers a lot of these issues. So this was in relation to Sheikh.
But also this question and answer maybe it's long enough for a cut.
Yes, I will do, inshallah. Yeah. But in terms of this and a very other question, a large number of other questions were covered in a video series, which was in response to Yasser Qadi and Haytham al-Hajj, where they were discussing a lot of these issues like nikah and all these kind of things, apostasy, all these kind of things. That's coming out in the next 2 weeks. It's a repeat from before, but it's been redone. It's been uploaded to the new channel. So all these kind of things. Inshallah, don't be shy about propagating this stuff. I got one more question to ask which was submitted earlier before I open the mic to a brother, and then if you've got time, we can ask the remaining questions. So this question that's just been asked before we started was: is it considered self-evident in Islam that a woman cannot be married to more than one man at the same time, unlike a man? But why do we not find a clear Quranic injunction, verse or hadith explicitly stating that it's forbidden for a woman to marry more than one husband?
No, this is narrated by Tawatur, and also the Quran indicates clearly. When you say فَانْكِحُوا مَا طَابَ لَكُم مِنَ النِّسَاءِ, this is a permission for men, not women. For women, it's very clear. A woman belongs to only one husband. And the other associated things related to that are so plenty. That's clearly was the ayah of just والذين فروج حفظوا إلا على أزواجهم أو ما ملكت أيمانهم فإنهم غير ملومين. ومن يطلع وراء ذلك فهو أزواج is plural for only men, and for women it cannot be because of the evidences. About that, the evidence is one of the well-established facts of Islam by many hadith and by tawatur. No, not one hadith or 2 or 5 or 10. The issue, for example, that in the case of a woman taken as a sabi in war, even that if she's pregnant, she cannot be touched by the one who owns her. It's off limit until she gives birth, and that the waiting period for death and for divorce and so on, and for khula is also until childbirth. So the time of this time is completely off limits. So she cannot be cohabited with a man while being pregnant, because if she is married to more than one man, what to do in the time when she is pregnant? She'll be pregnant from one of them, and how to organize that and so on. If you study all the narrations concerning the prohibition of concluding a marriage while a woman is pregnant until she gives birth, from a deceased man or from a man who divorced her, etc., a divorce her threefold or khala. So she's out, she's available, but she can't consummate the marriage. All of that makes it clear, especially for this. That's one of the main reasons, but there are many other reasons.
Okay.
So this is من قطعيات Islam. This is qat'i. And the hadith obviously in Bukhari also, that Aisha said the nikah was in Jahiliyyah, like those who have banners. This is prostitution. She means with the word nikah, intercourse. Jahiliyyah was everything permissible. Whatever the people agree is going on. So this was, and then a woman marry up to 10 men, like in Tibet and so on. It was and in the case of women who have unlimited, just per hour or something, that's prostitution. Standard prostitution. For that, the genealogy of the child is determined by DNA, for example, in Jahiliyyah, or similarly at that time, They get the qafa, the one who knows genealogy by body features and finger shape and so on, and they show the baby, and they show all the customer if it's available. Check every known customer, and if it fits someone, and the qafa say this is the father, then he cannot escape that, and he has accept that. In the case of 10 husbands, it is for the woman to decide who is the legitimate father, even if he is not. And the famous story about Amr ibn al-As, which some people do not like, but it is the reality, almost certainly, is that his mother attributed him to Al-As ibn Wa'il al-Sahmi. And her friends are saying, you know that he's not like that, and he's different. Say, Al-As ibn Wa'il al-Sahmi is a generous man. He spent on me and support me and my 2 other girls. His father, I know his father, most likely, she don't mention the name, but I can't guess who is, most likely Abu Sufyan, most likely. Is stingy. Nothing good can come from him. I'm not going to attribute my son to a man who is stingy and he's not supporting me. I better attribute it to a rich, noble man, which is Al-As ibn Wa'il al-Sahmi. So that's how Amr ibn al-As came. That he came from such a marriage is known, not only for this hadith, many other hadith. So that's a 10, up to 10. And then the nikah, like in our time. A man approach a woman, caught her, ask her father, and the father marry her to him. And this has 2 types, unlimited and time unlimited, and the time limited. Al-mut'ah was also in Jahiliyyah. It's regarded as a legitimate one, as the 3rd category. Then the mut'ah of Jahiliyyah was abrogated and reenacted. That's in a book about mut'ah, about writing about mut'ah. Mata hurrimat al-mut'ah, ila akhirih. Exactly, and the story. We clarified that, alhamdulillah, sufficiently well there. I think we settled all the question about that, how it happens and so on, because there's a lot of confusion about that. A lot of confusion about mut'ah, but otherwise, and also issue of wilaya, that the father have the control and have the final say, has been settled later, but abrogated by the Quran bit by bit and by the Sunnah. That's secondary issues. But the multiple marriage of a woman has been cancelled. This nikah is not approved in Islam. So this is mutawatir and yaqini. There's no issue of that. What was the other question?
Somebody's got to ask on mic. Far away.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu
alaikum, Sheikh Rash. So, Sheikh, I just want your opinion on what do you think about the theory that says that Socrates was a prophet?
That?
Socrates, the philosopher.
It's irrelevant. We don't know enough information about him. Maybe he was a prophet, maybe not, because many people claim that he was clearly a monotheist. That's number one. Secondly, he is accused by the Athenian of corrupting the youth, meaning diverting them from their own pagan religion, and was refused to give up on his point of view, etc. And was and then he offered to take poison if necessary, and he took poison. That's what we know. We don't have much more information and any details. He could be a prophet. Why not? What's sound breaking in that?
Okay, Sheikh. I just wanted your opinion.
But his students never said that he claimed to be a prophet or receiving revelation in the classical sense. But he could be. He could be at the beginning of the way of prophethood, like Ibrahim. Ibrahim started by rational thinking and so on, and later was adopted a prophet and messenger, as we have seen early in this surah. The one before was sent to his own people, adopted later, but originally he was a thinker, philosopher. So we don't know.
Because he was claiming that he was guided by some divine sign, and which he called his.
If this is established, and you are attributed to make the tarahum alayh and say, even peace be upon him, if he's a prophet, there's no problem. I don't see any problem in that. I don't think no need to make a standing army and start fighting about this point. It's completely irrelevant, historical.
Okay,
it's the same way, for example, many scholars said Zarathustra may have been a prophet, and for example, one Hanafi faqih said he was a lying prophet or a mutanabbi kadhib. I commented on that in the research al-Hijra wa al-Tabi'iyya al-Islamiyya haqq. I said I don't like someone calling Zarathustra a liar and lying prophet, because you don't have enough information about him that he was lying and so on. That's what the follower attribute many things to him. They may be true, maybe not. We see what the people attribute to Isa, especially
Yes.
in the book in the fourth gospel, John, attribute to him statement, which if you take in the context, you can give them some interpretation. But for example, before Abraham, I am, using the word I am in John. This at first sight him, even before Abraham, I existed somehow. It could be interpreted, I was known to Allah that I will be, and so on. But someone could say, the Christian claim, he is himself Allah, or an opening of Allah. I would say this statement is fabricated because it's not in the other gospels, nothing similar to that in other gospels. Only one gospels have these I am, the famous I am statements, which I think all fabricated and later embellishment anyway. So based on that, we say he was a liar. We cannot. But for the case of Isa, we know the Quran shows clearly. And so even the question of Qiyamah, did you tell the people that you are a divine being and your mother? So to adopt you like that, say, Subhanak, so it was being said. So we have the evidence of Quran against that, but for other people we don't have. Maybe not. Yeah? So take it as a rule. Anyone in history which looks like his statement and point of view similar to prophethood or looks like a prophet, maybe a prophet. And if you wish to say, he may have been a prophet, peace be upon him. Yeah, why not?
Okay,
problem. It's not worth waging war anyway.
Sheikh, my question was more like I thought that you are like
no. I mean, just do it. And even said Socrates, peace be upon him. If someone gets shocked, say, I believe he was a prophet. All evidence show that. It doesn't. Allah knows the situation and knows what's in my heart. So just shut up if someone objects. So if you want to go even to that level, I have no problem. Okay. So no problem. No.
Do you have more information that goes like in this way?
Not very much. That's what we hear here and there. But if you study whatever said about him, what students what said about him, maybe you can dig something interesting.
Okay, Sheikh. Barakallahu Fik.
Like for example, there are many things, but some modern scholars, these hypercritical, claim that one scholar 3 centuries before Christ or something like 2.5 centuries, claimed that Plato came to Egypt and studied from the students of Jeremiah, the prophet. Now, we know Jeremiah settled in Egypt and established a school of thought and so on there. And obviously, as a prophet, he tells the message to everyone who comes to listen. That's all the prophets have been done that. Daniel in Babylon, everyone else. And he studied this school, so he might be influenced by that. And some scholars said, oh, this is maybe a true story. Some say, no. It's a fabrication of this Jewish scholar to make Plato is depending and developing ideas from Judaism or from Jewish sources. Most likely he's an atheist for claiming that. I would claim the opposite. You are using this Jewish scholar of the 2 or 3 centuries before Christ to be a fabricator and liar because you want to make the achievement of Plato, philosophical deep achievement, a genuine European pagan development. You are the liar. I can't say that. Everyone can say whatever he wants. You can't make an accusation. I feel that the Jewish scholar, I don't think he's fabricated the story. He may have information which we don't have.
True.
Yeah, very true. And also we know that the Jews having, according to the Old Testament, which we have in our hand, they have historically big scholarship, at least after the Babylonic exile. And even before, all of the books have been tampered with, embellished and so on, but still it has a historic root. They have kingdom, they have things like that, at least from Suleiman downward. So what's the problem if they developed certain ideas about monotheism and so on? Even if you're an atheist, they could develop these ideas. According to atheism, the originals were pagan. Yahweh is the wind god, and that's what the hypocritical claim. Okay, it developed into monotheism. Monotheism is a development. Okay, fine. Assume that. What prevents Plato from going there and learning from them? Most likely Eurocentrism. Oh, no, Europe. All these genuinely European, originated from Europe. All these other races are low. They unable philosophical thinking. That's not true. That's simply not true. So some of these statements are motivated by racism, by especially from European in the last 2 or 3 centuries, because Eurocentrism and believing that everything we have must be going to genuinely to, especially from atheists and so on, must be Greek and Roman. Have nothing to do with these backward Eastern people or colored people. This is racism, but giving a philosophical cover. Even big philosophers, look at Hegel. It's staunchly Eurocentric.
I mean, Sheikh, the Arabic region was even like Roman before, like northern France and British Islands. They were like considered as like barbarians. So they're like far away from the Romans and.
But they say our culture is European. We are all cousins. Now they widen it into Indo-German. Yeah, that's.
But it's all false. It's all.
All false. All false. All false. We know that. All false. Now has exposed by genetics, by other information. But such ideas maybe. So the one who claiming, this story about Plato, because the one who mentioned it is a Jewish scholar, wanted to show that the Greek philosophy is originating and depending from on Judaism or Jewish monotheism and a way of thinking about the divine, about the world, about philosophy. No, can't be. We are genuinely is homegrown in Europe. Both the first claim I think is more valid than the second one, because we know that these scholarly results which we have in the books in our hand, even if they have been embellished before that and fabricated partly, but we are certain that they're available in similar form to today. There were embellishment after that, yes, but at that time 3 centuries before Christ, so they must have their roots 6 centuries, 7 before Christ. That's well before Plato. And so what's the problem of Jeremiah, prophet or not prophet, settling in Egypt and teaching the people, and Plato studying in the school? No problem. No. European never learned from these backward people. I think that the accusation is hanging in free air anyway.
Egypt was Greek, I think, at this time, no? Or maybe Roman, when Plato was...
No, Plato is 4th century before Christ.
Oh, yeah. So it was Roman.
350, 400 maximum. Maximum 350. Check, you can check quickly now and tell us when he died and so on. His time is well known. So very recent, the same time where the current form of the Old Testament is essentially fixed. There are embellishments after that and playing and mistranslation, yes, but it's only fixed. So that form is based on centuries before of development and embellishment and fabrications, if you want. But it is centuries earlier. These ideas are there and philosophical discussion. So no problem for Plato to travel around and learn that from these, maybe influenced by Socrates, if Socrates had been a prophet or inclined toward monotheism, which is almost like universal agreement that he was a monotheist. That's the reason of his persecution, actually. So if that's so, then he may be encouraged then to travel around and learn before he established the Athenian Academy. Yes, he pretended to use like pagan language, the gods and so on, just to avoid the destiny of Socrates, maybe. But he has studied there. What's the problem with that? Except for Europeans, everything is homegrown. We have nothing to do with these barbarian Arabs and Jews and African and low-class human beings, according to their sick idea of European centrism. Maybe, Allah, we don't know. But anyway, say that story is, I think I would trust that Jewish scholar of the 2.5 to around 250 before Christ, and he claimed that Plato studied in the school of Jeremiah. He didn't study on Jeremiah himself. Jeremiah passed away long before that, like 550 or 580. No, 550, maybe 520, 550. No, 550, him kid, 550. Because he was active in 600 BC, so maybe 550. So well before Plato, and his school was established in Egypt. And he said that in Egypt, he was not apprehended in the Babylon, was not taken to Babylon in exile. So he went to Egypt, saved himself by going there, and established a school. And its school persisted, and many people studied there, not only Jews, all other nations, which is natural. Nothing worth shattering. It's natural to expect a man of the caliber of Jeremiah, even if we don't say he's a prophet, even if you are an atheist. Man of great thought. His book showed the great thought and ideas he has and so on. Even if it's partly embellished, still must be some roots coming to his time. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So don't worry about that. Socrates could be very well a prophet. If you want to study his history and more thoroughly, and Plato and these stories, that's not a bad idea. It's a nice project. Interesting.
Okay, Sheikh, barakallahu fiqh.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good to be also give some historic facts, some justice and justification also. Why not? Okay. Any further question? Rash?
Assalamu alaikum, Professor. So, first of all, لستن كأحد من النساء. You're not like any other women. يا نساء النبي لستن كأحد من النساء. So that settles things down regarding following the Prophet of Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. They are not like any other women. So this concludes the matter. Now, on a different matter related to tafsir, remember one time you casually said that وَمَنْ يَقْتُلْ مُؤْمِنًا, you said that it could be interpreted as مُؤَمَّنًا. Correct? Now,
no, not Muhammad. I said because the Quran is revealed as a text, even devoid of dots. So if someone even dotted differently and gets something makes sense, maybe some meaning is there, and he could say because it's the divine. Number one, because it's the divine revelation. Because the divine revelation, Allah is very well capable to have this meaning intended. In addition to the other meanings. So that may give us hint. So the same for this ayah, etc., etc. If you read it everywhere, it said mu'min mu'ammanan, it works.
Absolutely, and there's a good case for that if we have time. But I just want to cross-check my usul with you now. In terms of Quran, because the Quran has a certain framework, we cannot like interpret Quran any way we want. So
why?
As you said,
why? In Arabic, بلسان عربي مبين. That's the framework.
But as you said, like last time, the story of Ibn Shambood, he recited Quran in whichever he wanted, and then he was like
no, not ever he wanted. He made the same thing. What I'm saying now, he made for example, فلما سيئسوا منه خلصوا نجبا instead of najiyan. That's his difference in dot. Nujuba meaning riding on najaib, on camels, on fast camels.
Yeah, but as I understand that this is like a shadh recitation. It's
yeah, that's what they call it, because they define shadh or not shadh based on their imagination. That's it. I say if the Quran is revelation without dots, because we know the first masahif were even not dotted.
Yes.
So Najiyah was written not with a noon, with just nabra. It could be noon, could be ba.
Yeah, the point could be anywhere, up or down. Yes.
Yeah, or no point.
Or no point.
And then it was written without any point. Najiyah, Jim was written without dot. Could be naha. And the ya after that could be also anabra. Neither dot and top, no. So you can dot it anyway. You will find all of them nonsensical except two. One is Najiyan, who all readers read this way.
Yes.
That's reason they call it shad. And one is Nujuba.
Okay.
So he may have considered the point of view what I'm saying now. But I was criticizing that they made jalsa istitaba lahu and forced him to make tawbah because he regarded him as a kafir, because he read shad.
Yes, yes, exactly. This is where I want to cross-check my usul with you, because I now on I differentiated between قراءة شاذة, which is a different topic than what I'm concerned about, in terms of recitation, and الاحتجاج بالشاذ. So we have قراءة شاذة.
No, it's not الاحتجاج. No, you're going in the wrong direction.
Okay.
If the philosophy is that way, if it is a divine revelation and that has been written without dots deliberately by divine instruction, because the Arabic language has dots before that, the writing, and we have evidence for that, physical evidence.
Yes.
Yeah. If that's the case, then why it was revealed without dots? Obviously, Prophet read it to them in a certain qira'ah. We have to find it out of that. That's a preferred one. That's a preferred one. But doesn't prevent people from noting it differently, for example.
Yeah, but then you're gonna face the problem that it is not mutawatir, and we know that the bulk of
it doesn't matter it's mutawatir because the rasm is mutawatir. We know the rasm. You are going in the same problem where this guy's going.
That's why, ya Sheikh, I'm saying that the recitation is not our concern. That's a different topic. The issue with mu'ammanan is in terms of ahkam, is in terms of deducing.
I'm not saying you take it as evidence because it's not mutawatir and so on. But if you see it, it will bring you the same existing evidence with additional flavor.
Exactly. Mashallah, that's exactly what I want to say.
Clarify, which means this way it is, but this is even just removing the tashkil, not even the dots. So why do you regard this?
But we know, for example, in one Sahih recitation, the people of Shamal Africa, North Africa, read it mu'manan, without
this is called ada. This doesn't make any different meaning.
Yeah. Now from my understanding,
mu'minan, they drop the hamza.
Exactly.
That's what Warsh does not like hamzas.
Yeah, in North Africa. Now, yes. Now, in terms of mu'ammanan, as I said, we can neglect the recitation part if we want to stick with the mutawatir. We can read it regularly, mu'minan. But in terms of ahkam, it fully indicates mu'ammanan from the long context of the ayahs before and
independent
after.
Of that, I'm saying this may be intended by the divine, or you can get some wisdom out of it. That's it.
Yes, and there is actually a good case for that. That's what I'm trying to say, is that if you scan the bulk of ayahs before and after, it will fully indicate for mu'ammanan. Now, of course, mu'ammanan it covers both mu'min and believer.
I agree with you. That's what I'm saying. You don't stick to that. Even the dots, you can shade them, unless you get nonsense.
Yes. Unless, ya Sheikh, and this is like a fundamental question, and unless you are saying that this interpretation of yours is a Quran, we are not saying that, right? Because
we said it is a writ. في لوح محفوظ في كتاب مكنون.
Yes. Okay. So then what we do with the fact that it is not part of qira'at mutawatira? Because
it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. It's a possibility. I'm not saying it is mutawatir or it's obligatory. It's more. Everywhere in the Quran it adds more. Like for Massari منه الخرص والنجية. Ibn Shumbut said Nujuba, riding on Najaib.
Yeah. But
Why Najiyah is more balagha. When they gave up on Yusuf listening to them, they went while whispering to each other and talking to each other. It looks more reasonable describing. But the reading of Shia is that they left and rode on quick camels and nujum, which indicates that they have nujum at that time and they were accelerating towards their father. But not a bad meaning either. Maybe this also is intended. Maybe it's the truth. We don't know. That's the point. That's all the point. There's a possible second additional meaning, third meaning, fourth meaning.
But how would you then respond to people who are saying you are manipulating the words of Allah?
It's not manipulating. It is revealed without dots, for God's sake. Why it has been revealed without dots?
Yes, but if you apply this same
no. You have to answer this question. Why it has been revealed without dots?
So it can be read in a different ways, in a limited context, not however we want. Like for example,
that's however we want. I told you, dotted anyway, and you see, you will find most of it is nonsensical because it's بلسان عربي مبين. It can't be suddenly become Chinese. Abu Wahab, it's very obvious what I'm saying. And it is in,
No, I totally
in
understand.
Okay, well, let's call it an end now, because you can always discuss this another time.
No,
Yeah?
Raj, this is very important. I'm trying to reach.
Okay, I understand it's important. Just that we've got a deluge of questions and we need to keep things moving along. You've got access to the doc. You can quiz him on you can do a dedicated session with the doc on this.
Yeah, just give me 2 minutes. I'm just trying to reach a conclusion. You are cutting my my ideas now.
The crucial question is that it has revealed without dots, and this it was written under the supervision of Prophet alayhi salam.
Okay, now this is I'm trying to reach a conclusion here. Now this is only for nujuban or mu'ammanan, but what about any other words? Like for example,
No. Leave this now. I take the principle. Other words, study one by one. I told you.
Okay.
The general mutawatir reading tell you that how the Prophet pronounced and the majority around him pronounced it. That's one fundamental reading which has to be referred to, and this is narrated by Tawatur. Agreed with that? Fine.
Absolutely.
That's number one. Number two, other possibility with the dotting and so on, because it's amazing how it is because the oldest fragment we have is the Birmingham and few others. They have no dots. Birmingham is there. You can check it. It's in the internet. The picture of the 20 pages is not dotted even.
Yeah, agreed. Yes.
Right. So why it is that? If it is a divine revelation, it must have an explanation. If it is a fabrication of Muhammad, it must be explained. Explain it to me. That's it. After that, what you conclude from it, you have a leeway. Go ahead.
Okay. In terms of concluding, if I have a leeway, as we concluded right now, what I want to reach with you is that it is only part of ahkam. It's not part of recitation, right? Like I cannot.
It doesn't matter if recited. It is not reasonable to read it in Salah, for example, and offend the people around you. There's no reason.
Exactly.
Maybe they criticize Bishwood because he read it in Salah like that. We don't know the details of the discussion, for example. But this is a secondary issue. The issue is that why it is without dots in a language which is the letters definitely dotted before Islam. Some Muslims say that dotting were invented later. This is absolutely nonsense and proven by rock inscription and by this document found in Egypt in the time of Khattab. That's disputed. So there must be some reason. Explain to me how come that it is written like this originally, deliberately, obviously deliberately, and according to the text of the Quran, it is fi lawhin mahfuz. Lawh. Obviously, it's something spiritual, not a rock or something, but like when he written on the alwah for Musa. Lawh is something physical, but this is not a physical one. And في كتاب مكنون لا يمسه إلا المطهرون, as if it's a book which can be touched. We know this is not a book like what we touch and so on. We know all these things, but it hints something. It is originally a writing, and the reading is following the writing, and there's the main reading pronounced by the Prophet, which we can get from the various readings, but even there's variations in the readings which due to tashkil. There may be variation due to, like for example, we have the two فتبينوا وتثبتوا. Yeah, this is both are narrated.
متواتر.
And the سبعيات. I doubt that each one of the سبعيات is متواتر, but to that it is متواتر. Even this claim of متواتر is question mark. But anybody know that. This is different in dotting. So how come they took that? Because it was delivered from previous generation. Okay, some things was not delivered, but it's intrinsically there. We may dig out of it some good information. We should do it. We'll try and see.
I did it for mu'ammanan, and ya Sheikh, finally, I just in one sentence, how I came to fix or to conclude this situation is as I said. Now it is if it is ashad mutawatir, we must have an independent source indicating to it. Like for example, mu'ammanan, we have for example the hadith man qatala mu'ahidan lam yarih ra'ihat al-jannah.
No, we don't need that's by itself, but we have that. It fits together.
It fits together, absolutely synchronized beautifully. So from here on, and I have like 10
try something which does not synchronize. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
It is the question, fundamental question is before that. Go to the fundamental question. Is it a revelation? Then obviously Allah ordered it to be like that. Why? We have to dig deeper. It is not a revelation. Muhammad is a fabricator and liar, but why did he, in a language, omit these things? Because the God that said evidence is evidence of prophethood.
Okay, I understand.
Think about it from this level. Leave the conclusion later. They will come. They will come. I know they'll come right. Don't worry.
Yes, by the way, Professor, now this only one evidence, man qatala mu'ahidan. I have like more 5 evidences from Quran.
Write them in the Muntada and later we will discuss under knowledge.
Yeah, let's call an end to this one now because you've got access to
no problem. But the fundamental problem is there, not in this ayah or the other part.
Okay, I've got one more question before
we have an example of dotting which is different in فَتَثَبَّتُوا فتبينوا. I try to do anything else that will come nonsense.
Okay. Anyway, you know what to do. Look, I've got it. I've got people spamming me before, so
you're starting something at the end instead of from the beginning. If you start from the root, ask the correct question from the root, then you are right.
Okay. It's coming up to close to 5 o'clock. I mean, there are still more questions. Let's see if we can knock any more out. So another one came through YouTube, which was, how do you respond to the Shia who use wicked wives of? Okay. Who I'm going to read it out as it is. I don't know whether it's the best wording. How does the doctor respond to Shia who use wicked wives of previous prophets to prove the possibility of betrayal by the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
If you can't prove anything, there's a possibility is there. Nobody denied the possibility. I just said, just a few minutes ago, if you commit a fahisha, you have to have a double punishment. Just an injunction, meaning it is possible that it happened. To prove that something happened, you cannot come with it, that possibility exists. You have to show it has happened. You cannot from the possibility to conclude that it must have happened. That's not the way logic works. No need to respond. This is a fallacy in logic. Yeah.
Also, the other thing to bear in mind about this is the fact that it's not all Shia who have the same point of view. Like, for example,
but the Chinese saying that doesn't matter. Leave the Shia out. So what does prove nothing? If they want to respond, someone say this is proves that is the possibility exists. Yes, the possibility exists. The Quran says this clearly, and the replication in Surah Al-Tahrim says clearly. No problem with that. Did it really happen? We know Surah Al-Tahrim happened. A replication they got. We know historically that she went where they should not have gone, with enticed by Abdullah ibn Zubayr to go to the miserable Jamal campaign. No denial of that. And she was repenting for that all the rest of her life. We know that, all these things. What does this mean? We know that happened. But if they mean that fahisha has happened, no. That's refuted by history and by the Quran. So that's it. But really, zina, I mean. Other things may have happened. And some really have happened, which should not have happened. Yeah, we know. But also, against the Shia, I could say, because they address the wife as Ahlul Bayt. Ahlul Bayt is a part of the Ahlul Bayt. Ahlul Bayt is older than Ahlul Bayt. So Ahlul Bayt also are not guaranteed to be infallible just because they are Ahlul Bayt. If the wives are not guaranteed to be infallible, so where did you get the infallibility? They got into some kind of faulty philosophical argument. Because infallibility is so difficult, you need to prove it. You don't need to prove fallibility. That's necessity dictated by some finite being is necessarily fallible. Now, being infallible, we have to have evidence. If you mean fallible, perfect in every respect, that's only the divine. It's impossible anybody. If you mean infallible, not committing sin, you have to have an evidence for that. If you need an infallible in the sense that he cannot make a mistake in the law, the holy evidence. If you make infallible, he cannot make judgment on the real universe. Thus, there is no evidence anybody who is infallible like that, including Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he advised against that. In the case of story of the when Sultan said we discussed the issue of that they lied to him and suggested to him that he should go to the pulpit and exonerate the criminal, just because it was not established that he did not a crime. As a judge, you establish, I don't have sufficient evidence, the man is presumed free until proven guilty, he is released. And that's it, because as a judge, you are not allowed to go publicly and say and defend this point of view. Actually, you should not do that. That will violate judicial independency. This is a deeper point people do not understand when there is the story of Abna, the sons of Urayqat, which discusses Surah Nisa. So he made this, and the Quran reminded him that should not have been done. He thought it's permissible. This is not a sin in regard. He did not mean to violate anything, but the Quran can remind him that your conclusion that he is not guilty because of the evidence on the table is okay in the court of law, but does not give you the authority to stand on the pulpit and say why people are accusing a man which nothing has been proven against him. Just refer the people to the judicial ruling. And that's obligation for any judge. A judge should not go publicly after a ruling and defend that ruling publicly. That's what had been decided. Check the ruling and the hukm. And launch an appeal or apply for set aside if you have reason to do that. That's it. It's not part of my function as a judge to do that. It's a very important rule in judiciary, for example. So there may be some errors in judgment, or something which was halal before became prohibited after that. For example, when he made an oath that he would not touch Maria al-Qibtiyya to please his wives, he was applying what the previous prophets and previous nations do. You can make an oath that you don't do a certain halal for all your life. That was within the right of permissibility. Allah cleared with this case that ancient permissibility that the mubah is for you to do and leave any time wish does not mean you can prohibit yourself for all life or for your offspring. When Israel, it was like that. كل الطعام كان حلا بإسرائيل لما حرم إسرائيل على نفسه. All food was permitted by Israel except what Israel prohibited for himself. That's abrogated. No more. So if you do something like that, you have to bring kafara. This is like an oath. It's an invalid oath. No more permissible to make such an oath. That's an abrogation of the initial permissibility, which I thought that it is permissible for him to do that. No, it's not permissible, but it's an abrogation in that case.
Okay,
Allah made this, gave you the faridah that you can relieve yourself from oaths, generally, and especially in such a situation, by the usual kafara. That's it, period, full stop. No more oaths which are so binding for you and even for your offspring until Yawm al-Qiyamah. That's gone. That was part of the previous Sharia. And it was understood that it's more permissible for you, you can do with it whatever you want. No. It has that, even had that limitation. And we conclude that restricting the mubah is not according to desire and arbitrariness. It is quite limited, even for the state. No, very important results of these things if you look deeper in the things.
Okay.
Anyway, so that's no need to respond to Shia or the Communist Party or anybody else. This is nonsense. The possibility of something does not mean it must have happened for a specific person, a specific situation. It may happen to any human beings, and usually until Yawm al-Qiyamah, all possible things would happen to all humans. Most likely. All possible mischiefs will happen, which human can commit, has happened or will happen still. I think all mischiefs we know has happened in time past. From genocide, rape, everything. You can't invent more mischief than what already have been exercised. And it will stay with us until Yawm al-Qiyamah. There will be criminals until Yawm al-Qiyamah, and so on. Doesn't prove that X, Y, Z, or Rash is a criminal in this, or a rapist. No. But Trump is a rapist, proven by the Epstein files, for example. So it's settled. No, this is the upside down logic. Anyway, Any question? Well,
yeah, sorry, I've got a three-parter, but we can save most of it for next week because one of them you already answered, and the person keeps spamming. And what is so I'll ask the first one. Is it true Rafique Hariri was assassinated by Israel because of his anti-imperialist stance and to create
I have no
tensions?
idea. I didn't bother with Hariri or study his life and so on in detail. Some people say Israel, some people Syria, some people say I don't know, honestly.
Okay. And last week you discussed the issue of Ahmadinejad's attempted assassination already, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's this the story that Americans are telling is a joke.
Okay. So that's been because the person who asked me was spamming this, and it was asked last week, so I was a bit surprised by it.
Doesn't fit anybody's mind. The probability of that is so small, is almost zero.
The next question, I don't know if you want to answer it or you want to do it after the Palestine update. With the war ending and settlement being reached between two parties, in this scenario, do you think the greater liberation cause of Palestine, Gaza, West Bank will develop if there's a settlement?
The question again?
If with the war ending and a settlement being reached between the two parties, do you think the greater liberation cause of Gaza, Palestine, West Bank will develop?
Will develop or
develop? I don't know. Develop. He said develop.
Develop. What do you mean with develop? It will advance or will
don't know, bruv. I'm just reading out.
It will improve.
Improve, maybe.
Whatever it happens, if a settlement and the Americans are out, then Israel is exposed. And then it will start disintegrating internally and externally. Maybe a slow process. I prefer otherwise faster, but Allah is the ultimate judge and planner for these things.
Anyways, we just need to wait a while, I suppose. Okay, I'll stop the stream now. We can start the Palestine update. Also, people, I get spammed a lot on YouTube. I'm going to stop looking at YouTube now because I can't handle doing the tafsir and everything while I'm being spammed. And then if people complain, they've got the Zoom link, they can join the Zoom. So best I can do. And as you can see from today, we've had a long question and answer session because people have been asking. So I can't appease everyone. And if you don't like it, that's your problem, not mine. Okay.